the answer for it. No.
Possible, not possible. So this is essentially a debate about methods of achieving the same outcome, right? From your achieving spirituality and achieving oneness.
It could be. It could be. But my objective is not to go to heaven. I don't want a heaven. I do not want the idea of heaven.
Yeah.
What would be better? I think what would be better.
Content over everything.
You kind of think of like a different plane of existence.
Yeah, is to go back to the origin of complete awareness.
But how do you know that origin is true?
I don't.
Well, this is the question we're talking about.
Absolutely don't, and I can't prove it to you either. All I'm saying is that I want to go along this path to see what I can do about eliminating the fear of death, maybe.
Fear of death.
Right.
But
and the longing for reward.
But why do you think human beings have the fear of death?
Oh well, it is the biological thing straight away. We have a biological drive, like all things, to preserve our life. Yeah, the unknown, and the loss of your ego.
Okay.
And you know something really interesting? If you have, this is what I said last time, see if the camera falls, near-death experiences. That happened last time. If you have near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences, you can induce these by certain methods. There's like meditation, drumming, certain psychoactive drugs, extreme experiences, danger, confrontation with people trying to kill you, car crashes, many things. Or almost dying in a hospital. These happened to me. You can have experiences that they seem to elevate your awareness to a different realm, where you can understand or perceive things in a way that you've never understood before. It's happened to me, most mind-blowing fucking thing ever, man. Happened to me numbers of times.
I've been in hospital once for heart problems.
So what's the objective? Like, is it to achieve a level of spirituality or to have real-world positive impact?
Right, well, both. I mean, you want to have a positive impact in the world for sure, but this world is an illusion. The spiritual realm is where things are at, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes. But what I'm saying is, if there was a certain entity, like a god, that created that spiritual realm, then you would have no choice. If this god exists, you would have no choice but to obey in order to reach that position.
I don't see why I need to obey.
Because that's what this creator has told you to do, or told me to do, or told anyone to do.
But
if that creator does indeed exist, then isn't it not better just, like I said before, to get that 100% certainty that when you eventually everyone passes away, that something good will happen to you.
But I'm not afraid of that.
So it's not a question of being afraid, it's a question of what happens next.
I understand, but for me, imagine if there's nothing. Imagine if your consciousness, your awareness, just switches off. Are you aware of that? No. This is what. I'm not an atheist, but it's an atheist view. It's gone.
Yeah, but it's like what I said before. If you're right, then the same thing happens to us. If a religious person's right, believes in one God, and says you need to live this way in order to reach heaven, then that religious person will have an advantage after he dies.
But okay, I understand you. But look at it from this way. Because look at it from this way, right?
Whatever.
If you have this God, if you have this creator, right?
Yeah.
Does it not occur to you how strange it would be to have a line of people, they all die, and you have their spirits in front of you, and you're like, well, you believed in me, you're my boy, you're my bro, you fuck off. Do you think that's the creator of the universe that does that? I hope not. I hope not, man.
But it depends. It's more nuanced than that.
All right, my example is rough, but preferring some people, preferring them just because they believed in you, and other people who didn't.
It's not just belief.
You push them away.
You're obeying.
Okay,
as well.
obey and believe.
Belief is not enough.
Okay, both, right? That's fine, both. But for me, if that's the mind of the ultimate creator, I'm terrified. I'm terrified. That's all I'm trying. It's one of the things I'm trying to say. If there is an origin of awareness, if there's an origin of the universe, I hope that we are part of that, and we're just an expression of it here in the world. I want people to live well. I don't want harm on other people. I don't want to force my views on anyone else. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Okay. I see.
Just to elevate awareness. And there's the other thing is that if Islam or whatever helps you live a satisfying life where you're not harming others and you're not pushing your views on others, I got nothing bad to say about it.
Well, that's
nothing at all.
Well, that's true Islam. True Islam, we don't push our faith on other people. True Islam is, you live according to God's instructions, and you respect, minorities and other stuff, and we live in harmony. But ultimately, it's recommended, obviously, that you should believe in God and obey God because of what will happen next.
again,
Because like I
don't
said,
want to go circular.
like I said, we both ultimately we both have never died, so we don't know what happens next.
Maybe we have. Maybe we've been reincarnated. Maybe there's a cycle of consciousness. Well, maybe it's true.
But we still don't know. Regardless of being reincarnated or not, we still don't know.
That's right.
So, isn't it not better to have that certainty with you?
Well, for me, no. Because
To have that security, I would say. That security that in case God does exist, then I'll be going to heaven.
But what do you think would be God's opinion of this God? Opinion of me? I'm trying to quest for truth. I'm trying to understand the universe.
I don't know, because God knows best.
Right. Well, if you think that your God would treat me badly because I didn't think exactly what he said or be exactly what he did, does that not make you question his justice? It really makes me question the justice of it.
Well,
Not just Islam, but Christianity and all the other ones.
God sent down messengers to every nation.
I've heard it many times.
Every nation, many thousands of prophets throughout history, in order to
They essentially warned them.
to give the message, to hear the warning to the people of what's to come.
The warning. Well, that again. Why? Why? Right. Okay.
Because death is inevitable.
Yeah,
That's why it's a warning. Because it's
But
inevitable.
it's a warning because something bad will happen afterwards.
Not
No,
necessarily.
not necessarily.
A warning could also be something for good.
Right, but it's both, right?
It's both, yeah, because of justice. Because of justice.
Right.
If you decide to be a murderer and live your life as a dictator or something, you can't expect to be rewarded.
I understand where you're coming from, but unfortunately, there's quite a few very significant theological problems with this idea, right? Because I could tell you this: it's going to get tricky. Do we have free will? Do we have free will?
Yes,
Yes, we do.
Does God know what will happen in the future?
he does.
Yes.
But this is.
Can't have both, man.
I know it sounds.
You can't have both.
No,
If someone's going to be a murderer, God knows he's going to be a murderer. So why is it? That's not a just test. He knows he's going to be a murderer.
I know.
It's a huge problem with it.
But God's intellect, and it's hard for a human
To understand.
To understand.
Yeah.
That's a
Because
cop-out, man.
It's different. We're living in space and time.
Yeah.
God is outside of the
outside
creation.
space.
Well, my idea is that our spirit of what we are, our awareness of what we are, is beyond the universe. It is. All of us, within all of us, is beyond that. We can tap into that. We can transcend ourselves. We can elevate our consciousness to get a sense of peace, to get a sense of completeness. Like I said, I had a few spiritual experiences where this happened to me in some sense. Amazing experience, mind-blowing, like a taste of heaven or whatever as you might imagine it. But it's complete peace, incredible.
And how would they achieve this?
Well, I had a near-death experience. I don't exactly recommend
So you
that.
always had like an out-of-body experience.
Well, it was, but you can induce these. You can have them. There's various ways you can do this. That is
Ayahuasca or something.
what.
Is it ayahuasca?
That's one thing, but it doesn't need to be with psychotropic drugs.
Yeah.
It happens to people during
No, it's
periods of
happened- yeah,
intense
yeah, yeah.
exercise.
I've
You've had it?
experienced it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What happened?
I got stabbed up when I was 16.
Oh shit!
Yeah. I was bleeding out.
I see.
It's like the actor Gary Busey. You know Gary Busey, the actor
No.
from America, because he had a motorcycle crash and he said he had a near-death experience. It completely changed his life and everything.
Yeah.
Like he could like see himself like outside.
That's right.
Before I talk out-of-body experience.
That's it. That's what I'm talking about. So I'm talking about is that.
But then that could be from God's permission, so you don't know.
Well, it could be. It could be. Like I said about.
And all I could think about was like God.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Because I've been in hospital with heart problems, and when I was there, like honestly, I was so scared. Should I tell you why? One of the reasons why I was scared.
Why?
Because I was just thinking, God, like please. Because I that was a period of my life that I wasn't very like religious. I didn't care about my own religion. But for some reason, something clicked in my brain, and I was like, man, like I was just like in my head, in my head, I was just thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in my head.
Exactly.
Because I was thinking, man, if I die, man, I'm going to hell, bro.
Yeah.
So that was your fear. Your fear.
Yeah,
You had a
I
fear,
was so
bro.
scared.
Right.
I was so
But
scared.
I'm just telling you, is that not an insidious thing to make somebody terrified of what happens after they die? Because for me, I don't have that fear. I've had times where I've almost died in numerous occasions, violent ones too, hospital ones other. And for me, I didn't have that. I had a feeling of, it's very hard to describe, man. It's going to sound cheesy as well, but elevated awareness, like a sense of peace. Man, I had an out-of-body experience where I shot up beyond the universe. I could go wherever I wanted and I saw the most incredible things. As soon as I came back to consciousness or whatever this is, I wrote it all down as soon as I could. Again, I wrote it down and mind-blowing visions, man. Who knows what they are? But they had deep meaning to me. And I didn't have fear of heaven, I didn't have fear of hell, and I saw something that might be considered a devil, or a jinn, or an evil spirit or something. It appeared to me in the first moments of these visions.
What did it look like?
It's a very strange
Sounds a
one.
bit like Aleister Crowley.
How?
I'm joking. You know Aleister Crowley?
Yeah, I know, it's a Satanist.
No, was he Satan? Yeah.
Why are you saying I sound like a Satanist?
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying he had lots of out-of-body experiences that he wrote about and stuff like that.
Yeah, well,
I'm saying
many
you're
people do.
Satanist, but I'm saying like.
Oh, definitely
Can you
not.
have an outboard experience and that be a good thing, a pure thing? Or no?
These are, as far as I'm aware, they are good things. Well, why not? It's
can be both.
It's
It
an
can be
elevated
both,
state of awareness. Sometimes you have these visions and they feel, I know they're talking, everything is subjective because we're only coming from this awareness. We don't know what this is. It's all energy in different forms.
Yeah.
Right? So saying, oh, it's just subjective. Well, whatever, everything is. But when you have these experiences, they feel more real than reality.
Yeah.
You experience things in a different way that's very difficult to describe. And the other thing we want to say is that, as far as I'm aware, we don't understand this reality. You look into the quantum physics of it, none of it makes fucking sense. Things can be in two places at the same time. Things don't exist until they're observed. You can alter one thing and it's across the English Channel and it alters simultaneously beyond the speed of light. It's like it's connected in the same place, but it's not. But it is, because it's quantum realm. We don't understand this reality. And I used to come from the more of a hard rationalist view where it's just like everything is just as it is because of evolution, this and this. And I was like, well, how arrogant can I be? I don't know. I don't know anything. It's atoms made of energy in different positions. That's all we are, well, physically. Yeah. I think we have something in our core that's beyond that.
Well, our technology can only pick up certain types of like radiation and stuff.
Right.
In the future, we might encounter new technologies that allow us to see more of the universe.
That's true. Might happen.
Things right here we didn't know existed around us.
That's right.
Could come to our attention.
Maybe it's exactly right. Maybe there's other dimensions that are very close to ours, and sometimes they can slip in and out. Maybe that's the idea of jinns influencing man.
We believe they can travel at like ridiculous speeds.
So maybe there's truth to these things. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just very.
We believe, like, you know, Shaitan, they can come, they can whisper in your ear and stuff, like, tell you to do bad things.
But that's only we believe that's only the bad amongst the
bad
jinn race.
There's good jinn as well.
There's good jinn, which we just call them jinn, and then there's the bad
Shaitan.
amongst them that interact in our with us. They're not supposed to interact with our realm.
Because when I told, like, when I had those visions in the hospital, when I wrote them down, one of the next thing I did is I called my bro. It's not actually my bro, it's a Bosnian guy, my best mate. And I told him about it. He said, well, the thing I described, this demon thing. What? Yeah. And he said, well, it sounds like a jinn. The thing I saw was a terrifying creature. But what happened is I sublimated my fear, if that makes sense. I got rid of it. I'll try and describe it to you, right? So I was in the hospital, I had an appendix exploded and I had to get it removed, but it was a very close call. And when I went under, when they had put me under anesthetic, what happened, they told me after I woke up or whatever we are, who knows what this is, like a dream world, man. The surgeon told me that my heart rate went to 250 beats a minute. It's almost about to completely give out. Yeah, totally. You're not meant to go that fast, but they gave me something that reduced it. I came back around in a state, and I imagine, you understand DMT? It's meant to be a chemical in the brain that's released. It's dumped into the brain at moments of, they say, death. I think this is what happened to me. And I had some incredible ass visions, but the first thing that happened is that everything was dark. It was like I could see the room, but it was in another realm as well. Everything was dark, and there was something in the corner. It was like, this is where it's going to sound really strange, but it was it looked like a type of lizard-like creature. It had limbs of a human, but its face was a grimace, like a really dark-looking evil face in the corner of this room, glaring at me. And the weird thing about it, it had blue-white fire coming from its eyes and its mouth. It just reminds me of the smokeless fire that jinn are meant to be made of, right? But had this like coming out of it, and I felt really strong negative feeling from this thing. And I remember, here's something I want to try and describe to you. You know, for example, if you see something that's really disturbing, like you could watch a really disturbing movie, or you could see a documentary and you see killed children and stuff, your brain puts mental blocks so that you don't remember that and stuff. And you're like, oh fuck, and you try and not remember it. Traumatic. So that was happening in this moment. I was trying to block it. I was like trying to push it away. I was like, no, don't think about this, don't see this. And then I stopped. And it was like I was floating above my body in this whole time. right? I couldn't see my body, but it was like I was floating. And what happened is I decided to go into it. I decided to go into the fear. I dropped this defense mechanism, and I remember just looking at it with no fear at all, just blinking really slow, just looking at it. And it dissipated. It vanished, it disappeared. I dropped all my fear and I went into this terror, and it vanished. And then after that, it's like my spirit it felt like from the back of my neck, it's like it shot up. Like this soaring, I can't describe it to you, this massive soaring feeling of energy going straight through your body, like a white hot energy. Very strange, but it's been described many times by people having out-of-body experiences. It's like I shot beyond the universe. I could go anywhere, be anything. I was going down into the atoms, I was going into bacteria, I was flying under the sea, I was going all over, going to other planets. Anywhere I willed to go, I went. And then a wee bit further than that, near the end of this vision or whatever it was, I saw something very strange. And it seemed to me, and this was all in a state of like rushing ecstasy, but of peace, not of pleasure, if that makes sense. And I saw something, it looked like if you could imagine a black hole, and then you could imagine what would maybe be the opposite of that. It was like a swirling white, yellow ball of energy beyond the universe, two of these things intercombining. Like a black one and a white one, all mixing together like that. And it was fucking unreal, man. Crazy. And I had this sense, I don't know what that was, but I've seen a picture. I was reading books about out-of-body experiences. Somebody drew a picture of what they saw, and it's pretty much what I saw. And they had the feeling that this was meant to be the awareness. This symbolism was of awareness. And I came back into consciousness, or whatever it was, in the hospital, and I wrote it all down. And then for 2 weeks after that, I had complete peace. My mind was at complete peace. Everything seemed different, if that makes sense to you.
What changed?
I don't know.
Well, you said for 2 weeks, so it ran out.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then I don't know what it was. This deep inner peace started to get eroded by the struggles and the troubles of life, and you see injustices and you feel bad about it. But in this moment of peace, it felt like everything is as it should be. Yeah. If that makes any sense to you.
You said the demon.
There you go.
Sort of looked like a lizard.
Yeah.
We believe the demons can take like different forms.
Yep.
Yeah. Some people, like the occultists, some of them describe them as lizards.
Yeah, that's right.
Like they even
That's why
say
they
that
say
they
lizard
morph
people.
like lizard
That's right.
people.
Yeah, like
and some people
reptilians and
also
stuff.
say that they see like little elf-looking creatures with horns. And they just take different
forms,
appearances depending on who's like looking at them, depending on what is in your mind.
That's right.
Manifestation.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the story I was trying to tell the last time before we got interrupted.
Have you ever had a sleep paralysis?
No, never had. No, I've had sleep paralysis.
I've had it.
No, I know the
Scary.
experience.
The reason
Wake
why,
up and just.
This is definitely not sleep paralysis.
the reason I say is because this is an experience that many people face that's similar. And like you said you've had an out-body experience that's similar to others. I'm wondering if you see any kind of spiritualness or something in the sharing of the same sleep paralysis. Like
There's nothing like sleep paralysis. Nothing like it at all.
What was your experience? No, I'm not saying it was. I'm saying.
Sleep paralysis, you don't see stuff. You just like you can't.
Yeah,
I
you
woke up and I couldn't move. For like a
Did you feel that? Did you feel like there was something in the room with you?
No.
I felt like I had something
on your
my chest.
Like, everyone says the same thing, right? But there's some kind of something on your chest.
It kind of feels
Like
like
I
you're
can't
losing
move.
breath as well.
Yeah.
It's not just my
And
chest.
you can't make scream.
you can't scream.
It's quite likely to be a biological explanation.
Yeah, I think
for
it's
it.
more biological.
It's having no air.
So that's the biological. So is your one biological?
It could be, man.
Right.
Am I claiming the truth? No.
No,
But I'm telling you that the type of experiences I had, I was in control of where I was going.
Right.
I wasn't subject to anything. I wasn't in fear. I was controlling where I went and controlling how I felt and where I was going.
So when you were out of your body, could you see yourself?
But in sleep
No, I never saw my body.
paralysis,
No,
sometimes
I felt. And also,
when I had it, I
you know
felt
about
so
the concept of ego death.
It wasn't just I can't move.
Well, it's that when you have these type of experiences, you can experience the death of ego, in that everything that you think you are, like your personality, the way you think about things, your preferences for stuff, where you come from, all of this completely disappears, and you feel a oneness with everyone, a oneness with everything.
So you are preaching ego death.
Preaching.
As in,
preaching, anyway.
Preaching is probably a bad word. It's definitely a recommended feeling you would try to get other people to experience.
Absolutely.
Right.
I think it is a fundamental thing towards making any progress spiritually, never mind relations with other men.
Other what?
Other men, other people, humans,
Right,
man.
yes. Okay, so I guess ego death is something you want us to all feel.
I don't want you to feel it. And you're using loaded terminology. Like, I'm saying that for me, it was an incredibly valuable experience. And I think it was consciousness expanding.
Yeah. So sometimes when I talk to you, sometimes I feel like it's like I'm putting psych on you. I never want to put psych on you. So I always assume that if someone goes through something that is wonderful, there will be a need for others. Like I assume you guys, you're Muslim, right? Yeah. And you believe it's wonderful. So you want others to experience that wonderfulness, right?
Yeah, for the like after.
Yeah.
Have you had any type of experience that I described?
No, I've never been in a condition as critical as yours, even if
Right,
experience.
but that doesn't need to happen in near death. It can happen through meditation. It can happen through rhythmic drumming. It can happen in intense exercise or extreme danger.
Have you
It doesn't
experienced
need
this
to
in
be
all those
death.
things you've said? So you've experienced it in the depth, the near depth, but have you experienced it in the drumming and these other things?
I've experienced it in exercise. They call it. It's got different terms, but in different
Endorphins?
levels. What?
Endorphins in your head?
Well, it can be, but it was an experience with the same type of feeling. Like I used to do a lot of hill running, a lot of long distance hill running in Scotland. And when you get into a certain rhythm, a certain flow of running, your breathing synchronizes, even though it's usually very fucking cold like this, and you're running up and down the mountains and you feel above your body. You start to feel that you're above it. It's such a strange feeling. You feel like you're floating while you're running. And it's a similar type of thing. Nothing as extreme as what happened in the hospital, but there's this type of feeling that you feel a elation. Like, you understand what I mean? Extreme happiness. It's like joy. It's not pleasure, it's joy and extreme happiness.
Could this be more
Maybe
biological
it's
rather
your
than spiritual?
endorphins.
Well, of course.
Isn't it just your endorphins going off?
Well,
Because you're exercising
it's
or-
possible. No, it's possible. But obviously, I've trained a lot, and I know
Yeah,
what it
yeah.
feels to get a pump after working out.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
different feeling. This is a different feeling where you sometimes. It sounds strange, but sometimes your eyes fill with tears. Tears of fucking joy. It's weird. You feel a peace, a happiness with life. And it could be endorphins in the brain. Absolutely.
Can you exist without your brain? Do you think you were to exist without your brain?
Well, I think what we are at our core is something beyond the physical. So yeah.
So meaning that so you can separate from your brain and still have the same kind of like memories or awarenesses.
That's a tricky one. I think that maybe when you separate, you will experience ego death. I think you might go beyond what we think we are and connect to something greater, and you lose this perception.
And you have experienced that at least once, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
When you separate from your body, you're probably and you're on your spiritual sort of like plane.
Yeah.
This life will probably feel like a millennia away.
Yeah.
You know,
It
like
might, yeah.
like so far back.
Yeah.
Even if you've been there just for like a brief period of time.
That's right. This is why it's one of the reasons why I've got I feel that I have a very different view on life and death than most people do. Maybe they don't. I haven't talked to everyone.
I
of
don't
course.
think you've talked to that many. I think there's many people who probably are on similar wavelengths of what you're saying.
But let's take it here. What I mean is that when people die, they think it's a bad thing. They think it's a sad thing. They think you should be afraid of it. I don't think you should be. I think you should be aware of where your consciousness is.
No,
like,
but
what-
should you be afraid of the consequences of death?
What
No,
are
no.
the consequences of
In
death?
my
What?
near-death
Because we don't know what's
experience,
going to happen next.
When I was 16 and I was bleeding out,
Yeah.
like literally I thought I was dead.
Yeah.
Like literally. Like I wasn't like afraid, scared. I just like I felt like I was talking directly to God. Like I felt like a phone call, like literally.
Were you talking at him or were you having a conversation?
Not
Was
having
that
a
a feeling?
conversation.
Right.
I was talking to God and I felt like it was being heard.
Right.
Like I felt like something coming over me. Like
In a real life or in a dream?
no, when I was
In real
I was
life,
alive.
man.
In real life,
In real life.
not in a dream.
No, not in a dream. No.
I mean, I can only come from my experience. Yeah, it might sound silly to a certain extent, but like it's not always like as serious as yours. Like where I've been stabbed or anything, but it's more like existing in my head in my dream. So I was sleeping and in my dream I felt like I was dying. Like literally, I felt like I was dying. I thought like if I can just comment on the details, it felt like someone was grabbing my throat, squeezing my throat, and I was pleading to God, please, like if you let me live, you let me survive, I'll be a better person, I'll start praying, etc. These sort of things. And I think if I remember, I think it happened a couple of times. And then I wake up the following morning, and it felt like what? I felt like I woke up like relief because it felt so real in that moment. And I literally felt like I was dying. Like I felt like I thought to myself, if I didn't make that plea, I would have probably been dead.
Did
You know what I
you
mean? Even though
uphold
it
the
was a
promise
dream.
though? Did you uphold your promise that you made?
Sorry?
Did you uphold the promise you made?
to some extent.
Was that a similar thing to you? As in, after that experience, you became more religious, I would just say, spiritual.
I was like literally like had a direct line to God in my mind anyway, and I felt something coming over my body. I don't know whether it's my body losing blood and I'm just starting to black out because I was blacking out. But it felt like 100% like real.
Yeah.
You know.
I understand.
I was just asking like, please don't let me go out like this. Like I know I'm not perfect. I wanna make things better. Give me a chance, sort of thing.
So is that
make it easy for me if I do? If this is the end, make it easy for me, please.
Is that spiritual or biological in your mind? That whole experience.
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest.
So you've had sleep paralysis before, right?
I have.
Is that spiritual or biological now?
I think there's instances where it could be biological because I believe in science, and at the same time, I think there's a possibility it might also be spiritual.
How so? How could that be spiritual?
Because when I had sleep paralysis, like not only could I not move my body, I couldn't even like speak, and I felt immense weight on my chest, like immense, like a boulder or something.
But what is biology? Because this is really important because we're making the distinction. Like I want to make the distinction between spirituality and the physical world, right? But what is biology?
Yeah, well, I think it's things that we can actually feel and observe in the physical frame, right?
But what is physical?
Well, the stuff we're observing here. So this shell that's been displayed to me, and the biology that encompasses it.
But what's it made of?
Well, it could be flesh, blood, water.
More. What's the core of it?
Particles.
Right. The core of everything is atoms.
Yeah.
What are atoms? Energy, vibrational energy, right? That's what everything is. Everything.
So is that spiritual?
I don't think so. I think it's a construct. I think it's an energetic construct. I think our spirituality is beyond that. But this is like when we say it's just biology happening in the mind. But what's happening in the brain? What are endorphins? They're fucking atoms with energy, and they interact in different ways to create different things. That whole idea is crazy. Like, it's very interesting. It's just crazy that this whole world is not solid. It's energy forces. When you stand on the ground, you know, when you stand on the ground, you don't fall through the earth, right? It's energies, it's the strong and weak nuclear force that's pushing against each other. There's nothing physical there.
It's like, you know, atoms, they're moving around, right? So they go here, they go there, everywhere.
Well, it's like you don't know where the electrons are.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's like, you know, when somebody gets a feeling about another person, they look at someone, they get a feeling, like a deep down feeling.
Yeah.
Like, that can be like from that. It's like, we're not just physical, there's more to it.
Yeah, nuance, substance.
Like, people, you know, when George W. Bush, he said, he made a famous quote, he said, I looked into Vladimir Putin's eyes and I saw his soul. It's kind of like that. It's like, you can look at someone and you can just get a feeling of who they are without knowing them necessarily.
Right. So you have deeper intuition,
you can get something. But I remember when I used to go to school, like, before like something bad would happen in a classroom setting, sometimes I could actually see something, but I had this feeling that something bad's gonna happen. Like, it's weird. Like, it's like sometimes you could be in a public place, and you could just feel something bad is gonna happen.
Right. You're talking about a feeling of underlying energy or something.
You can see two people having a conversation, but you know, like, they're gonna have a fight later on, or something, or somebody could stab someone or something.
There's lots of things you can pick up on. You can pick up on the body language cues and that.
It's not just
but it could be deeper. Yeah.
It's not, because you don't know the people. You don't know their past relationship.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like that intuition that we have.
Yeah.
And I think it's more than just physical. It's more than just probably someone saying, "Oh, he looks a bit dangerous." It's something just deep down inside that connects all of us.
I think you guys will know more than me about this, because I don't really experience that. I really would like to know this spiritual feeling that you guys are going through, and how we can actually either recreate it or better explain it. But I still see things in the physical realm. I haven't seen anything that even quantifies what these expressions of spirituality actually are. But I'm looking. They're very interesting.
Maybe you should experiment with psychotropics.
See, me myself, because I value the biology now, I don't try to do anything that might necessarily degrade my body. So if a drug is...
Would it degrade it? I don't think it degrades it. It's used in medical practices.
Yeah. So I don't know the list of... There are certain things you can take that make you have some experience.
Depends on the dosages, really.
Because you could overdose and die.
Well, sure, but you can do it with coffee.
I don't do coffee, so...
I mean, either.
Yeah.
But what I mean is there's certain ones that are used to treat... I think it's psilocybin used to treat smoking addiction. and it's got something crazy like 90% success rate. They give it, people have a spiritual experience, and then they're encouraged not to smoke, and they don't smoke. There's a study done recently. Just check it out.
Was it called? Sorry,
I don't know. I don't remember the name of the study. It's just psilocybin.
Are you guys smokers?
I used to smoke.
Did you take this stuff to stop, or did you just stop?
No, I just stopped cold turkey.
But you don't need. It's called psilocybin.
It's for the side. Never heard of it.
Psilocybin.
You a smoker?
Just look up psychotropics.
No, I vape.
I'm not exactly.
But
I'm
you
not
take-
necessarily
uh,
encouraging it. I'm just
I
saying
used
that
to
these
buy
are
it.
things that you can use
to add a
that
lot
they
of
can
baccy,
have these
maybe
experiences.
cigarettes, and I
They've been
smoked
used for a
weed.
long time,
Well,
man.
he's just giving us some advice.
If you talk about, if you go
but
to
that's-
the Amazon,
I don't think
they've got this
that's-
ayahuasca,
I don't think
and the
that's
tribal
available.
people there, I
It's not.
don't know the
Oh, it's just
specifics
some
of it, I
illegal
just know
stuff.
it
I don't even know.
originates there,
I
and they've
doubt
been
it's
using this
available,
for a
man.
long time to go on
If
spirit
it was,
walks,
the NHS would be
to
giving it out.
contact, to have contact with nature, to go on crazy, like we talked about, visions and adventures to gain wisdom by taking these chemicals. It's been a part of a lot of different cultures. Very interesting stuff.
Can you gain? Is wisdom looks like more of a lived experience, right?
It can be, yeah, sure, it can be. I think that you can gain wisdom in this way, though. And maybe
you make a
alters-
lot of good claims, interesting claims. I
Yeah,
should say.
very
Well, it's
Very interesting claims.
well, whatever. I'm claiming
Yeah.
about the things that I've experienced.
Yeah.
So, if something can help you drop your preconceptions and think in a different way, I think that's a path to wisdom.
Well, I think it's an interesting path, definitely. If you can, I think being open-minded is very important.
Well, sure, but I mean, I'm talking about open-minded on the level that you drop all of your prejudices that we all have, and you try. It's not even a conscious choice. You're thinking about people as they are, if that makes sense.
Would you say you've dropped all your prejudices?
Well, obviously not in this physical realm, no.
But that time for the 2 weeks, you would say in that particular time you were not prejudiced at all.
I don't think so. No, I think I was thinking and I was feeling in a different way. It was a great experience. You see, if I could give that to other people, I would. It was such a great experience of complete peace.
But you said
I've
you wrote it
heard
down,
of
didn't you?
people,
You wrote it down, didn't
I
you?
wrote down the visions I had. Yeah.
And okay.
I've heard that if there's some people that take like DMT in a group, and then they have like visions, which are like extraterrestrial, let's say,
Yeah.
like something out of the norm.
Out
Yeah.
of the universe, you mean?
Possibly, I don't know.
Out of the
in
material.
their brain, but
Right.
they're as a group, and they all claim to have seen the same thing, like the exact same thing in the same part of the room or this or that, and they have this. They describe it to a T,
Strange.
the same way. How is that possible? I don't know. You have a mind of your own. He
Well,
has a mind of his
the
own.
sleep paralysis is something I
So-
said that we all seem to share the same experience, and that's hard for me to explain. Because you've described exactly how it was with me.
No, but I'm talking like visions. Like people are seeing things
Yeah.
and communicating.
And all the people see the same thing.
Oh, right,
and they're
right.
saying
And
the
they're
same,
communicating with
and
each other
in the same place,
and
in the
they're
same moment.
communicating with
Yeah.
these
Other-
things
Yeah,
they're seeing
I've heard it. Yeah.
at the same time.
So that makes me really. I was already questioning reality, like we said about the atoms and energy. But when you hear these stories,
To me,
it,
that's spirits. That's
it might be. It really makes you question what everything is, and that's I think like I say, I think it's a path to wisdom. Question everything.
but that's
Don't
the
trust
thing.
your
a
own
lot of the
feelings.
elites. That's why they're obsessed with all of this DMT. And I've heard things like I've listened to a few things about like these psychedelics and stuff. Yeah, there's some people who actually like try eating like pituitary glands and stuff like this.
Oh right,
or, like,
I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, hoping to
gain
gain
it.
that state.
Yeah. So, well, different ways to do it. Like I was saying, this is all connected to when we started talking originally about ideas of heaven and hell and punishment and reward and spirituality and what you are, where you come from, what is this realm. That's what I'm interested in trying to explore. And it's a
So
difficult
when
one.
you talk about heaven and hell, do you guys do good, quote unquote, for good sake, or so you do not go to hell in your mind?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
No,
Which one?
Which one? It's a
It's a
question.
good- It's a two
Do
choices.
good, do good. What would you say? For good sake or not to go to
Well,
hell?
for good sake, as in to make sure that there is a minimum. Like,
you repeat
least
the
amount-
question? Sorry,
Yeah.
yeah.
So do you guys do good deeds for good deeds' sake because it's the correct thing to do in your mind, so you don't go to hell?
Or sake. Yeah.
Or so it could be a mixture of both. I don't want to give you the answer.
But the first part is subjective. So you're saying for good sake.
Well, so
For good sake according to Islam.
Well,
I'd say-
I think
it's
Humanity just.
I
Well,
think
it
it's a
depends
bit
how
of
you-
both. It's a bit of both
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
when
I agree.
humans, as humans, yeah, for the most part, we don't want to harm each other. We feel good when we do good to like each other.
And that's separate from God.
That's why we buy each other birthday presents. We don't have to buy each other birthday presents or something, but we do it anyway. When we show each other like compassion, it does something for us as well.
Right.
We feel it does good for our soul. But on top of that, we also feel that it helps us in the other realm.
So is it a good motivation or fear of being burnt forever or whatever the punchline?
I think it is good.
It's a good motivation.
For some people, because people have different outlooks. Some people, they need a little bit of the fear, and others don't. They just care about the love aspect.
When you're burning
Depends
forever,
on your personality.
is it this body that's burning forever?
Well,
Is that
It is the body,
physical body,
Or is it the
and
soul?
Is it the soul?
It's a bit of both.
You're still connected with your body,
Right.
but it's in the.
Sorry?
Speaker's Corner every Sunday.
So you can come down here and
Actually,
talk
I
about
don't
any
want to say
topic you
anything
want.
that I'm not
If you're
too
into
sure
religious
about.
politics or just fun stuff, you talk about it and you have debates. And you're welcome, you're camera now, so you're welcome to join us.
Say hi to the camera.
Yeah, there you go.
World famous Speaker's
There you
Corner.
go.
Sponsored by Coca-Cola.
Do you want to explain the situation and how it happens in hell? Because I don't want to say anything that I'm not too.
So this is where I want to jump in. There. Not dissing you. Why is he afraid to make a mistake?
Because in Islam, if there's something that we're not
We shouldn't
100% sure
say
about,
it, yeah.
we shouldn't say it, just in case it's wrong and we're giving out wrong information.
Okay,
we can
that
be
makes
misleading.
sense.
We have to verify things according to our scriptures.
Understand. Here's my next point. Why do you believe something you don't 100% understand?
Because
You get
he
me?
might have evidences.
Let me clarify. I think it's
Just a genuine question.
I have obviously read the literature on the process of death and how you die and what happens after death. But to I guess regurgitate or re-explain that information of literature I've read several years ago, I don't want to kind of paraphrase incorrectly. I might say it. I might miss out a few details, or I might get some few details wrong. So, I mean, just to give these guys the benefit of the doubt, I'm thinking that these guys probably know more.
You probably know more.
No. I'm just making the assumption that these guys probably know more about the information than I do. So that's why I was like, I'll pass the baton on to these guys just in case.
Well, I don't know why you would think that. I don't know.
I don't know.
I
I could be wrong. Maybe they don't know, but
You are wrong.
Do you get the motivation of my question? I think it's an important one, because I encountered this a number of times, and I think this is one of the reasons why it pushes me away from these ideas, or thinking that they are completely true. Maybe there's certain things in it that we might share ideas on, but other things, probably the most important one, the God entity, we're different, right? So that's what makes me aware. It makes me wary, not scared, but it pushes me away. Is when, like I said, you know what I mean? Are you free to leave?
Like if I didn't know, for example, if you asked me that question and I didn't know it, just because I don't know that question doesn't mean that like I'm following blindly.
Yeah, right.
I might have found evidences that I feel are viable to justify my belief.
Yeah.
But just because I don't know that one aspect or that single question you asked me, it doesn't mean that.
Here's another one for you.
I'm going in blind.
I got you. No, I understand that. I got you. But here's another one for you. Is it because it concerns me about limiting consciousness, limiting awareness, limiting your understanding of potential possibilities, and that's what another reason that pushes me away from this all-combining framework, right? Like Islam or other religions, they claim to say that we've got the answer for all, and that pushes me away, right? Because we talked about the impossibility of reality. We talked about how things are very strange and hard to understand. I mean, we had out-of-body experiences, other dimensions, spirits. Who knows what this stuff is? And if something claims to know all the truth and the answers, it makes me personally wary of it. Maybe you don't, that's fine. But for me, it's wary. Because why should you have a framework that has all the answers? Is there not more to it?
Like, what you're saying, like, for example, as a Muslim, I can only speak as a Muslim. We don't say that we have all the answers. Like, for example, we believe that we have the way of life that will allow us to succeed in the greater aspect of like existence. But we don't say that we have all the answers. Some of the answers are for God and God alone. For example, when this universe will end, we don't know. That's for God. That's for God.
Don't you think that here's the core question, one of the core questions. Can you discover spirituality? Can you discover spiritual truth without God? Without religion? Without spiritual books and guidance? That's my question to you, because I believe you can.
You said spiritual truth.
Well, yeah. Can you have a spiritual adventure without being part of a religion?
You can have an adventure, but not truth, in my opinion.
I think, like, obviously, like, from your experiences, just from your anecdotes, like, that's an example of it, right?
Well,
you
yeah,
don't
right.
have to be religious to be spiritual. You can still
Right.
be spiritual without being religious. So,
Right.
like, you're an example of that. Other people who I've come across and I've spoken to, when they've said they're spiritual beings and how to kind of increase their spirit, so to speak, they do that through meditation, things like that. It's like you can still be religious, but not necessarily. You can still be spiritual, but not necessarily religious. I would say it's kind of it's not mutually exclusive.
Just to add to both of their points, basically, what you're going through, that could very well be a trial for you alone from God. So, for example, this is what I said before. I'm a Muslim right now. Yeah? You're not. I can't say for anyone who's non-Muslim here that you're going to hell. Because only God knows.
Yes.
Only God knows. I can't say, because it could happen, it could be possible that I may end up being a non-Muslim and you might become a Muslim. We don't know.
I don't think he takes that even remotely seriously.
I reject the idea of heaven and hell.
All right. But what I'm saying is, it is entirely possible. We don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now, 5 years from now. So I can't. What you're going through now could very well be God's, trial for you.
Okay, so I put a philosophical paradox to you before, and it's a really tricky one. I don't think there's a proper good answer for it, and it's one of the reasons why I can't go along with it. Is that, like I said, if God knows the future, but he makes this as a test, but he knows that somebody's going to do immoral things, he knows someone's going to be a murderer and break his law, they have no choice. Because he knows the future, but they have free will, but he knows the future, so he's going to get punished for something he didn't choose. That's a huge paradox. And so that means that heaven and hell is unjust. You get me?
To be honest, the topic you're bringing up, Qadri, yeah?
I don't know what the name is. This is the idea.
To be honest, me personally, I'm not knowledgeable enough to understand.
But you're spirit, man. Every one of you got your own awareness. Like, I think you can discover spiritual truths by yourself. I'm not saying drop your religion or drop your beliefs. No, I'm saying that you can discover. I think you can further discover spiritual truth
you can
by yourself.
Spirituality, you can see
but
things.
But we believe God gives us the tools in order to make the right choice.
Okay.
Even though he, like you're saying, he knows the outcome. So how come, what's the point of having heaven and hell if he knows the outcome? And he knows you're gonna. Why have the test if he knows you're gonna be bad, or he already knows you're gonna be successful? Why have the test in the first place?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
But that's the thing. What we say is there's some things that are beyond
human comprehension.
And that's not.
Is that not a cop out though? You know what I mean?
I don't think it is, because this universe is so complex. Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
So complex.
Do you feel humans can know everything?
Yeah, that's
I think that right. Well, I think that we are.
can't.
I think there's a state of complete awareness, and I think we're a manifestation of that. Because, like I said right at the beginning, when you think, the only thing you can be sure of is that something has awareness, something is experiencing, and we put that something to be I, but the I is the ego. But we still have that awareness in our core.
The thing is, though, we still want. We human beings, we still can't reach a state where we know everything.
But you might, when you die, when you transcend the physical realm, you might go back to the core of all possibility.
Okay.
That knows all and is all.
So
but you don't know this at all. This is a feeling.
Yeah, sure.
But that's the thing. We reserve the status of the all-knowing to God alone.
Yeah.
And what if you are a part of God, experiencing itself? You know what I mean? It sent itself out to experience the physical realm and come back to itself.
I can see where you're coming from.
You know what I mean?
I understand your point.
It's an interesting idea, nonetheless.
I would like to know how. So, I understand where they get these ideas from. There's a scripture that they read, and they tell, and it's not necessarily based upon experience. It's based upon scholarship and stuff, right? And yours is based upon your experience, but also, I guess, a far forward. You know, as in like trying to think ahead,
how's it
right?
going?
Because you haven't necessarily experienced these things you're talking about, but you feel you have awareness that this might be a certain reality truth, right?
It's certain feelings about
Yeah, it's
things.
a feeling. So
Sure.
it's
I'm not
far-sighted.
claiming anything is truth. I'm not claiming I
I'm
know
not
the
saying
truth.
you are, but
Yeah,
what I'm
right.
saying is
Yeah, they're clear.
you have different ways of how people process information, aren't you, right? So I've described that these people here, they've read something and that informs their knowledge, or you've experienced something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But what you're saying is, according to them, what is being told is the truth, right? And
Right.
they accept the truth. For you, you don't necessarily know the truth, but you're trying to experience it, but you have certain kind of like visions of where it might be.
No, God
Got feelings
for
about
us-
what it might
for-
be.
For us, yeah.
Yeah.
God reveals the truth to us
In the form, and yeah.
in the Quran.
In the Quran, yeah.
Through His words.
Yeah.
But He also tells us to go out and like experiment, look, read, seek knowledge, to verify.
But what if
If
what
it's
if
the
you come
truth.
into contact with information that completely contradicts it?
That's a good
That's
question.
the thing. That's the thing.
Because you will reject it because of confirmation bias.
God actually tells us to try
It's
and like
theory information.
no. God
Just
sorry.
theory information.
So what?
So I guess what you're saying is,
I
if
want to
there's-
get. What were
No,
you saying?
sorry.
God actually challenges mankind to find a contradiction in His scripture.
But I told you the paradox there. The paradox of free will and knowing the future and being all powerful and having heaven and hell and being an unjust punishment and reward.
But
that's
the
a
thing.
paradox I can't get past.
But that's the thing, because you're living in this space and time, or this universe, in this framework of space and time, yeah? There's something outside of this creation.
I think we're from that.
We are in the creation now.
Yeah.
We have rules of nature, rules of physics.
Mm-hmm.
Outside
There is no
of the
rule.
creation,
Yeah.
time is different.
I think I
But
agree.
you know this
Space is
through,
different.
you know
I
this
agree.
through scripture.
Huh?
You know this through scripture, right?
We know this,
And you know this through experience.
Well, it's obviously I haven't experienced that. It's an
Right.
instinctual
But it's
feeling.
also,
Well, can I
Call it that.
but it's also
Well, this is my thing. I'm just trying to take the.
we verify it
Yeah.
through our experiences
Right.
in life.
But you've yet to experience the things you're describing, yeah.
Yes,
Right?
yes, yes.
So this is interesting.
We encourage
So
it.
you've read about the experience that you've yet to experience.
yeah.
You have yet to experience, but you understand this experience might be true. But yet, no one has actually gone through these experiences and actually documented them for us to verify that these claims that we're making, there is some kind of truth or some sort of way of guiding us to experiencing these things ourselves.
Well, I think the things I was describing with near-death experience and out-of-body experiences, I think, and trying to transcend your current level of awareness, I think that's the path.
Would you say that they're doing it? They're
I think that people who are Muslims have done and do and engage in spiritual advancement, yes. But I don't think that it might be inculcated into the structure of the belief system.
So you said
understand?
something earlier. You said that if something comes on that contradicts your something in your scripture,
Yeah,
you'll
you'll
cast
reject
it aside. And that you think that's a no-no. Would you say that's a no-no?
Well, I don't understand what you mean.
As in, like, so basically, they're following the guide that Christians, like Jews, so forth, right? And then there's a piece of information that comes in that doesn't correlate with what's
Yep.
saying in the book. You're saying that if there is truth around it, a perceived truth, they should actually listen to it rather than reject it,
Yeah.
and not be limited by.
Absolutely, of course. But that's the thing. If you tie your ego, this is what we talked about last time with being your labels. Like you attach your labels to yourself, to your ego. Like I'm a Muslim, I'm from here, I'm from Scotland, I'm from Algeria, right? These labels are going to be, I think, work to limit your connectedness to all people. So when you discover information that might contradict your ideas or the ideas in the religion or other religions, people are naturally, most likely, going to push them away as much as possible because your ego is tied to that. It's called ego investment.
Would you agree with this
you
statement?
have to completely reverse your entire mindset.
Would you agree with what you're saying?
Shit, it's not true.
In
It's
Islam,
not.
yeah, we're taught to remove ego from ourselves. You know, if somebody, I'm not sure if it's entirely true, but if someone has like a very large ego, arrogance.
No, it's the different meaning of ego. I know it's the meaning of ego as in the understanding of self.
Okay.
Like your personal characteristics. It's not
Okay.
being arrogant. It's a
Alright,
different meaning of ego. But yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it tells you not to be arrogant. That's cool.
Yeah.
But I'm meaning to drop the ego investment. Because I think it only puts barriers to your understanding. Because you might discover stuff that contradict the book or something. You maybe think that's impossible, but you might.
So if
And you
that was
have
the
to
case,
reject it, or you'd have to
would that
reverse your
mean to you?
whole life.
If there's information that
Maybe.
contradicts your religious scriptures, how would you handle? What would be the next step? So there's this piece of information that's coming in that you feel is either quite valuable or truthful, or there's something about it that's very intriguing. But from the base level, it seems to contradict your understanding of the Quran. how do you treat it? What's the next step in your mind?
If there's any falsehood in the book, it's not from God.
Not in the book. So the information comes from outside the book, isn't it? So the book has the tales and stuff.
But if information
If it contradicts
comes
it.
from outside, that is like, let's say science is verified, to a certain extent, and it's considered like general consensus, like correct, then it contradicts it, then there's a possibility that is falsehood. That is
So so you would say if it's not within the book, it's all Mac falsehood. So you're saying any information that doesn't correlate with what the book is saying is falsehood in your mind.
No, like let's say if they said the Earth is flat, and in the Quran, and then we know now the Earth isn't flat, for example.
But some people don't believe that. But go ahead.
Well, I know, but whatever. That's a different topic.
Yeah, right.
Then that's obviously a mistake, isn't it?
Right.
You're saying that the book will be a mistake.
Oh, the book would be a mistake.
Yeah.
So if the book's a mistake, that means you would that then crush the whole concept of being a Muslim? You would then have to be like a Jew or an atheist or a Sikh or something else.
But I think, sorry to jump on you, but
it says, because in the Quran it says there's no falsehood, isn't it? In this book.
So if you just accept one falsehood, then that means you, by definition, you have to leave Islam. Is that
by definition, it's like it's not from God.
It's not from God. Yeah.
This falsehood. Because why would God give falsehood?
Right.
That's
true.
true.
But then what if the concept of God, like he's saying, might be different?
Yeah.
So what if God could actually give falsehood? I don't know. But I'm saying, what if your concept of divinity is being limited by a cultural understanding, where in your understanding divinity is nice and playful and all the rest of it, but in another reality or a real reality, it's actually the what are they called, not Zeus, Zeus and them kind of
the Greek gods.
In those tales, the gods are actually quite wicked.
Right.
Yeah, they're not nice at all.
Greek mythology.
Well, it's not just Greek. It's certain stories that I've heard about. Certain stories I've heard about Yahweh or God or Allah.
That could be
they seem to me to be very human desires, like wanting to go to the city and destroy it and kill everyone inside, Jericho, and telling people to band up in groups, and then the punishments dealt out to people. Like I said at the start, they don't seem to. I would hope they wouldn't be from an all-powerful, all-knowing creator. They seem too human. They seem too brash, too emotional, too you don't understand. It's a perspective. Don't worship anything else but me. Like a kind of selfishness. God. Yeah, like a jealous God. You know what I mean? That's an interpretation of it. You can have a different interpretation, of course, but that's when I look at it. It feels like that. It feels too human, and it makes me scared of it. And it wants my worship.
Do you feel that there's a human element to most interpretations of religion? Do you reckon there is a human element that is within the writing or the interpretation of the writing? Or do you feel that this is definitely divine words and there is no human element at all to this kind of stuff?
First of all, it has to be, obviously, everything has to come from God.
Right.
Because if it doesn't, then it's pointless.
So I think, stop me if I'm wrong, so there was Muhammad and he got from the angel Gabriel, and then the angel from God directly?
Yeah.
Right, so there's two beings and one human.
Yeah. Well, it's like his message wasn't changed. It was like basically everything like God willed.
They don't have free will.
But you know the writing of the Quran, it wasn't done at the time of Muhammad, was it? It was done after. Exactly.
Yeah, it was after.
So could there be
compiled? No, it was written there. But when it was compiled, like into
one book.
Yeah.
But
Muhammad himself didn't write it down at the time. He was living
He was illiterate,
Yeah, he was literate, right? So he was living and then doing what he learned, and then as stop me if I'm wrong, as he passed away, then people made notes of how he lived. And some of these are hadith, some of these.
You're talking about hadith.
Am I right? But this is what you follow, right?
No, people are writing it down even during his lifetime.
Okay.
The hadith, even during his lifetime.
Right. So.
No, not the Quran. Hadith.
It's talking about hadith.
Yeah, some of it.
Some of it was.
So was some of it written
after?
What do you want to say?
Yeah.
So
jump in.
Yeah. Do you want to come in, bro? Is it possible to be a Muslim without the Quran? Is it possible to be a Muslim without the Quran?
Like
Muslim means one who submits his will to God. A baby, we believe all babies are Muslim.
we believe everyone's born a Muslim.
Right, okay.
That's why when somebody comes to Islam, we say they reverted. We don't say they converted.
I understand. I would say that I don't like that idea. You know what I mean? I don't like that implication. But I suppose that's my personal preference.
I think it's a nice way to speak, but I don't think it's accurate because how would you test if a baby is thinking of divinity or joining some kind of a movement that allows it to be at peace? I don't know how you would determine.
Like we believe all creatures are just like living their life, submitting their will to God.
Anything that's doing what it's meant to be doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like a tree is a Muslim.
Like a whale
Right.
swimming around the ocean. That's
So the Quran is not necessary to be a Muslim.
To know God, maybe.
Now that the Quran is here, it is. But we're talking
before.
like before the Quran, or even like basically anyone who submits their will to God is a.
I got a question for you. So when you say submit the will, what does that really mean?
Yes.
Because that's a major reason what pushes me from it. Like I was saying about limiting consciousness. If I can try and discover spirituality by myself, trying to understand the other realms above us without knowing about Allah or about the Quran or about the Bible or about anything else, I think that may be more valuable. Like if I can do it personally, individually, as an individual path, for me maybe that's more valuable. But what does it mean, submit your will?
Yes.
Submit your
Good
will
question.
To basically believe in one God, like the existence of one God and one God alone.
Is that more important than the rule structure of how to live your life day to day?
Right.
Tawheed, the belief in one God is the most important.
Why do you think that's the most important? Yeah. Why do you think that's the most important?
Yeah.
Because we believe that's what God wants.
But why do you think that's what the God wants in your mind?
So I believe that's the natural inclination of a human being is the belief in one God. As we grow up. And
what's the value? So what is the value of this belief? What do you reckon?
You have a connection with your Creator.
And you can only have that by believing in the existence of the Creator.
Yeah, you can't unless you believe in the Creator. You can't have
and you've got to believe in the Quran. Before the Quran arrived, they were saying you could be a Muslim without the Quran.
Okay.
But now the Quran has arrived. You have to believe in the Quran
to be a Muslim.
That's right.
So a baby is a Muslim.
Yes.
And when does he stop being a Muslim?
If, like, as he grows up, maybe society puts like different cultures on him with different beliefs and stuff, which take him away from that natural inclination of believing in one.
So
God.
I've always asked this question to Christians and Jews and so forth. What do you think God's biggest wish is for humanity? What do you think? What is God's biggest wish for humanity? Or want?
Good question.
What do you reckon? What do you reckon that is? So there's something God really wants humanity to have or do. What do you reckon that might be?
To lead them on the straight path, so that they eventually, after this world, which is a trial, when they die, so they can go to heaven.
Yeah. So how does that manifest? So it's like
what is the straight path?
Yeah. What is it they have to do? I think you said they have to worship one God. So do you reckon that the God you worship has done all it could, he could, to achieve that? Do you reckon?
We believe he's sent down many thousands of messengers throughout history.
Because here's what you're saying. What we're saying is there's someone who's perfect, all powerful, and the most important thing for them is for you to worship one God. I'm saying this all powerful person. Do you reckon they've done everything within their power to achieve this? In your mind?
Everything within their power.
Within the power. So the power that you're pushing forward. Do you reckon that power has done everything within the power it is to achieve this one thing of making everyone worship this one power?
I wouldn't say everything within their power, because God can do whatever. Like, God is capable of doing anything. He could create us all.
Got a question.
Jews or all Muslims. Straight away, and then.
Got another question.
It's a test. We believe this life is a test.
Why is it a test?
Why is it a test?
To qualify, because when you sit at when you do a test, you're doing it to qualify for something.
Well, that's for God to know.
To know what?
That's His knowledge. Why this
to
life
test
is
you
a test.
if you're worthy of paradise or hell, or.
But do you not think it's a test anyway? Just in terms of
let me see. If
in terms of the daily
because
struggle.
there is a contradiction here. There's a paradox.
Okay.
If you say that the Creator is all-knowing, knows the past,
I've done
present,
this one.
the future, And then, why does he have to test you to see if you're
That's the
good
paradox.
or bad?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
the
he wants to
paradox.
perhaps he wants to
Yeah.
give you the free will.
Huh?
Perhaps he wants to give you the free will.
Free will. How does it work?
Because he
Will
knows,
to-
he knew, if the creator
Such a
is
powerful
all-knowing, he
paradox.
knew that Hitler was,
Such a powerful
or
paradox.
Stalin was a mass murdering evil man. Then why have him? Why test him? Because he knows.
That's it. It's the same. It's the same one I said
It
to you
sounds
before.
like, yeah, a remix of yours.
Yes, remix. Yeah.
Remix.
Because I know that if I set a bomb here, in 10 seconds it's gonna go off.
Don't do that.
It's a short timer. That's a short timer, man.
No. Or I know if I
Quick,
let
let's
a,
run.
I know if I bring a tiger here and I let it loose, it's just
But then
Tiger
when
go on a
when
rampage.
you have the greatest enemy,
See if we
which
can
is
get back
Satan,
to
trying
spirituality.
to pull you away from God's way of life and how you should conduct yourself, and Satan wants you to follow him, and that choice has been given to you whether to follow Satan or to follow God.
What? So would you say
That is itself is a
is
test.
Satan the evil representation of God? Then it's like if
No,
God
it's
is
not
everything
an evil
good.
representation of
No.
God. Satan, when he disobeyed God's order,
Right.
God said to him, "I'll cast you to hell forever." And he asked for another request and say, "Oh God, would you accept the favor of anyone that I mislead to go in hell with me?" And God accepted that offer as well.
Why do you reckon God would do this? Such a thing.
This is what's happened. This is the
Why,
will of God.
what's the value in such a?
Well, I'm not a God. I can't tell you.
I got a different perspective for you. So what about if it's this?
So
What about if something is giving you a message that's leading you on a path? Imagine you all have infinite awareness within you, like I've been saying to you. And that infinite awareness, when you die, can connect to the whole when it comes back to its core, beyond the physical realm, illusion. What if something's trying to give you a message, not saying it's this, I'm saying maybe it's all these religions having the similar idea, that it wants to direct your consciousness, direct your awareness towards its path of worship. Like, it wants to take your consciousness towards it. But maybe it's for its own, this is my idea, maybe it's for its own power. Maybe it uses that consciousness for its own power. It only wants your worship. It wants you to obey it. It wants you to submit. It wants you to go on your knees
no,
and
but Islam doesn't want you
put your
to
consciousness to
submit
it.
to any other
doesn't
human
make
being.
a good
You know what I
sci-fi
mean?
concept. That
I think it might be the case.
Can I?
That scares me, you know.
No, it's a good question, and I was actually having a discussion with the Christians how Christianity has been changed from the actual way of God to the Council of Nicaea, because the Romans literally twisted the message of Jesus, and they said, "Hang on a minute, we're accepting this Christianity today, but who was Jesus?" And they said, "Okay, we had our own gods. Let's turn him to Jesus, to the gods that we believe in." And they even turned Jesus' birthday from his actual original birthday to the satanic gods that they believed in.
Right. So maybe these satanic gods are what people have put their consciousness
No,
towards.
but then
You
Islam
know.
doesn't call you towards man. Islam tells you instead of having a mediator that you should go through to, go directly to. So Islam doesn't.
Like, for instance,
Islam has no
story that you
agenda
quoted
or man
about,
agenda behind saying I should be controlling you.
Well, I got one question for that. Imagine if I live a good life, right? Imagine if I never heard about Islam at all, and I lived a life that was by chance or whatever, in line with all of the rules. Like, you know, I didn't fornicate, I didn't drink alcohol, I didn't do any of these things. You know, I protected nature, all these stuff. But I never believed in a God. I didn't say, okay, yeah, Allah is the one God. When I die, I'm going to hell. That's not just.
That's not what
You never heard.
That's not
you
what
never
we
heard
believe.
the
Never had a
message.
message.
No, but what I have heard. But what about now? I've heard the message. What's my fate now? You know what I mean? Does that not make you? Does that not really make you question it? Because it seems to drive people apart. Because what if I'm living a good life and I'm not harming other people, but I'm following
You
these
can
laws,
live a good life,
and I'm
but
still
are you
going to
living
get.
the way of God?
But that's it.
the question.
But why is there a specific way?
What's good?
If
Because
there's
he
God,
created
don't
us,
you
so we
think
that
you
he
should worship
knows
God how He
what's
wants you
best
to
for
worship?
us.
I think that it seems like a dictatorship of fear.
Okay. Can I take this
Sure.
back to where we were talking about last week and see how it connects with this? You see, before we just
Stay on topic though.
yeah. Sorry, what's the topic? Just in case I'm just.
Well, it's not
Spirituality.
It's more spirituality. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Good.
Now it's
So,
just moved on to religion, but
yes. So in the conversation,
You are dead.
if we continue this way, we just you're just trying to defend Islam. Right?
And I don't want you to defend it. I want to talk about the code of spiritual belief.
Good,
if
right.
you can advance yourself without it,
Right,
you know what I mean?
Okay.
Elevate your consciousness.
So would you agree with this illustration? This is a scenario I'm painting. Right. As you were saying last week, that there's a spirit, we're all in harmony with the spirit. Yes?
It's in us all, yeah.
It's in us all.
I think.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, we can.
The
from
spirit,
Islamic point
the
of view,
spirit
we
of the
agree
Creator.
from the fitrah.
Right,
We believe there's
right.
But what do you feel though?
Well, hold on.
You know what I mean?
Let's go
Rather
slowly.
than the
Let's go.
Islamic perspective, what do you
Okay,
feel?
I'll tell you how
Wait a
you
minute.
feel. I'll tell you how
Wait.
you feel. You don't need to go to university or college or even school to know that it's wrong to marry your mother. So it's innate. Do you see?
Wait,
okay.
So
Okay,
that's-
go for
it.
Or
Okay.
to harm
Right.
an
I'm going to
innocent
try and bring
person
this down
or
to the
an
basic.
or an infant or something tells you within your conscience. Yes, and we say everyone has that within them.
Right.
But
Morals.
the society, and the social upbringing and so on, that takes them away from their natural disposition or how God created them purely.
Okay.
So,
Right. So we're this.
Okay.
See, you were discussing. This is discussion about
so that's
morals.
why we say, talk about
Right.
innocence.
So before we go into morals about what is right and wrong.
Oh, sorry, mate.
Yeah.
See you later, man.
Good. Okay.
It's too cold out here,
Just like last
I'm gonna go for a walk.
eh? It's freezing. It's
I'll
freezing.
warm
It's
up.
freezing.
I might
Yes.
come back in a bit.
Alright, no worries, man.
Okay. So I want to go back to the fundamentals. Spirit, and then there's the flesh. Yes. And so we all believe that the spirit is in the body. Do we believe that?
Yes.
Can we all agree on that?
I agree.
The spirit, and then there's the body, or the flesh. And as we were discussing last week, the body is just a vessel. Is that correct?
I think so.
Anybody would disagree with that? The body is a vessel that houses the spirit. Yes?
Is there a
But they
body?
can't.
Is there material?
Oh, yeah,
Or
man.
there's a
What's
body
up?
there. Right? So this is a body, and then there's a spirit that is universal. But
in your
this body, I have my body, you have your body, you have your body,
Yeah.
but yet the spirit is all
It's universal.
is universal.
I think so, yeah.
All right. So,
Universal. What do you mean universal?
I mean, present in all things.
in all things, yes. So that's the spirit. So the discussion or the disagreements would be about the vessel. There's no point arguing about the spirit because I think we'd all agree on the spirit. So now,
The spirit and the vessels, they have to. They're in one.
oh wow,
Separate them.
this is the question. This is the question. Now some people, they see the vessel or the body as the evil. So that the devil works with the body. Yes?
No, I think it
How do
tries.
you see it?
I think it tries. Well, I'm not saying. I don't know if there's a devil,
They call
but if
it-
something might be trying to influence your awareness, I think their awareness is all that's important.
Okay, and that awareness or that thing
Yeah.
works with the body.
Well, it works with your awareness, which acts as your conscious, which makes you do things in the physical world. But it's still directing your intentions. I think that's what's important, right? The intentions of your actions.
Okay, so therefore, all these different religions are like different bodies. So you could be Muslim, you could be Jewish, you could be Christian, you could be. You understand? So just like we have different bodies and different names, there could be as many religions as there are individuals.
Right.
Yes? Right. So some people are saying that we've got to escape our bodies because our bodies are evil.
I don't agree. No.
Depends on how
Our
you
bodies
use
are
your
evil.
body.
Yeah, and they're saying that all sin is a result of the flesh.
No, I think it's the intention of your actions. It's what's choosing to do the action.
The intention.
Yeah.
So where does the intention come from?
Well, it must be, I don't know, your awareness, your spirit.
You see spirit. So you've gone to spirit again. You see?
Why not?
The spirit.
else is there?
So therefore, we're trying to understand how the spirit is connected with the will. The spirit and the will. And so therefore your spirit and your intention, as you're saying, could have a certain, that's what you want to do, but your body may limit you from doing what you intend to do. Does that make sense?
I think you're getting a blank.
Not really, no. It didn't make
Okay.
It all comes down to whoever made your spirit and your body. Whoever made you, because you're in one. We don't separate the spirit and the body Islamically anyway. You're one. Whoever made that knows you better than yourself.
Okay.
And we should look, instead of looking at answers, it's like you saying, oh, the purpose of the car itself find out the purpose, or the car itself set the purpose. It's the manufacturer and the designer, who knows the car better than the car itself. Sorry, it's
but
a
the
wrong
car-
analogy to use, but I hope you understand it. Whoever entity made us knows better, and in my opinion, it's only befitting that entity tells us how our body functions or what our hearts are, and our spiritual side.
If we just follow what you just said there, if the body and the spirit are one, that means you would never be in clash with the spirit, would you? We'd all be in harmony. So what is called the other version is
we're saying your
How would you
thoughts
clash with
and
the
your
spirit? I wanna
spirits
ask a question.
can
How would
be
you clash with the
right.
spirit?
Okay,
How would you
good.
influenced.
Let's
Can be
slow this down. We're
influenced.
dealing with
This
the
is what I'm
very
saying.
fundamentals here, raw fundamentals.
Give
The
examples.
question
How would you
was,
clash
how would you clash the spirit? Now, in the scripture that Christians use as well, they say, Paul said, my spirit and my flesh are at war. You should be familiar.
Yeah, but
yes?
like practical examples of it. We're going more into the
Right, so you
This
could...
umbrella's gonna
All right.
get pushed away.
Yeah,
When you're
okay.
in this
Yes,
state in the
so I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to give you an
Is
example.
it the thoughts? Like, what is
I'm going to give you an example. You could believe
Got it
that
last week because it was raining. And I thought, fuck
you should not drink alcohol. Yes, you might believe that is what the creator, the spirit, is telling you, that you mustn't drink alcohol.
I think
But yet you have a craving for alcohol. So that must be a clash then between what you're feeling and what you know to be correct. Does that make sense? There's a clash there, isn't there?
Okay, so when you so let me
Yes?
get this straight.
Yeah, right.
Wait,
You
I wanna-
understand that?
Okay,
Let's go this slowly.
It's to fight your lower self.
That's right. We're getting there. We're getting there slowly. We're going to go there slowly. I want to go there step by step.
It's the
nobody misses.
so wait, just to clarify something very quickly. It's the craving the spirit.
Sorry?
It's the craving. Given just your example.
Yes.
Yeah. So for example, if I'm correct, I'm going to repeat your point. God or the spirit.
Yes.
Tells you not to drink alcohol, but you have a craving to drink alcohol.
Yes.
So that's an example in
Yes.
your eyes of yourself and the spirit clashing.
That's right.
So in that example, are you saying to define spirit?
Yes.
Are you saying God is the spirit? Is that your
Yes.
definition of the spirit?
That's right.
Okay.
And that the will, your will,
So basically,
is
you're
in
on
harmony
God.
with your spirit.
Your spirit is your own God. That's what he's alluding.
Yeah, your spirit.
Your feelings and your desires are your own God.
Yeah, for
In
example-
fact, that's what the Quran says. Allah says there are those that are taking their desires and their feelings as God.
Yeah.
So,
So
your
you can
feelings is
know.
your spirit. Is that what you're saying? Just like.
Let's break this down. Let's go slowly because it's very complex. But yeah, it's simple. You could be in your bed in the morning. Your alarm clock goes off. Right? You know you have to get up to help people or feed the children or do something. You believe that at 9 o'clock I should get up. The alarm's gone off. I'm supposed to get up and do what I believe I should be doing. But yet your body just wants to stay in bed. So in your mind, there's a fight then, isn't there? Because your body is very clear. You can feel it, can't you? Your body just wants to stay in bed.
What was the thing you were
In
messaging
fact,
when you said
let
you
me
had,
add something. That's literally the etymology of religion is re ligare, which is Latin for binding. If you look at yoga, we get the English word union comes from yoga, to unite. So it's all about uniting your lower and your higher self. That is why the ancient Egyptian pharaohs, you would see them with a uraeus, a snake right here. The snake that tempted Eve in the Garden of Eden has been culled and now is here on your side.
You think so?
So it's all about binding your lower self with your higher self. That is what religion is about. The masses have never been given religion.
what they've been giving is dogmata, which results in schismata. That's all. So religion is all about the binding of the
Explain
Lord
what you mean
ourselves.
by dogma and schismata.
Okay, dogma is just blind belief, fetish, while schismata is division. So dogma leads to division instead of unity. What we're seeking in religion is unity. You want to unite your lower and your higher self.
I want to go into what you said, lower and higher self.
Yeah.
Pardon?
I want to go into what you said, lower and higher self.
Yes.
A lot of people talk about that.
Yes, that's right.
My lower
That's right.
self, and I need to get back to my higher self.
Right, right.
So obviously, this is where it connects with the body, right? Because if you want to reach your higher self, there's certain things, in my eyes anyway, at least, that you would refrain from or prevent yourself from doing to reach that higher self.
Absolutely.
Yeah? And if you are at your lower self, then it means that you've probably done some stuff, or you have done some things you shouldn't have, whatever, to get yourself to that lower self.
Of course, you're eating the wrong things.
Eating the wrong things. or
You're
doing the wrong
sleeping
things.
around. You're ejaculating your seminal
Yes,
fluid,
yes.
which must never be ejaculated.
Yes.
You're drinking alcohol, which is acidic, so it lowers your self. You become trapped. You perpetuate in the lower self.
Okay.
You're eating meat, acidic. You're also perpetuating in the lower self. Your main emotions are negative. You're constantly afraid. You're jealous. You're angry. All these are lower self things. So to cultivate your higher self, you need to start fasting. You need to start, eating the right food, alkaline-based diet. These are the ways to keep on going to the higher self. You meditate, you pray, you perpetuate on positivity. That's the higher self.
So that means you have a higher spirit. Is that what you mean?
That's the meaning. What is spirit? Spirit is Latin spiritus, which means breath, wind, air. So it's all about breathing. You want to breathe the right air. That's all it is. You want to meditate. You want to control your breathing. That's how you cultivate your spirit. You see, the problem with people is that they take stuff which is originally in Latin, then they apply connotative English that is used today, and they seek an understanding, which is impossible. It's not going to work that way. So you have to look at it in the language that it was originally written. You see, both the Quran, the Bible, all of these books are actually talking about the same science, the science of the higher self. That is all it's talking about.
Can you see a positive in depression?
No.
I can.
Wow.
So
what?
you were talking about inspired, like it's like to breathe in. Isn't depression simply the practice of breathing out, and isn't that an important?
That's an interesting angle. I get what you mean. I get what you mean.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. You see, people don't know that depression, the mental state, has a physical component. And the physical component are the things that you put inside your body. The moment you put wrong things inside your body, it affects the way you breathe, and then you get depressed. That is why when you're depressed, you're always having those kind of deep breaths. So you're not breathing well. All of these things are related, obviously, right? So that's it.
So, going back to what you said, do you believe that a child, a baby, when it comes out, is that baby connected to the lower self, and that the baby, as it grows, the baby has to learn to become aware of the spiritual self and the moral self and so on?
No. When a baby is born, it's more of it's
huh? Okay. Yeah.
You need help?
Just a toddy, man. Just
Where are we going?
Charlie, hut thing over there. To summarize, because we just moved place, we're talking about the spirit and the flesh, and whether there's a clash between the spirit and the flesh. Yes, whether there is tension between the spirit and the flesh. So, some people believe that when a baby is born, the baby is pure as in the baby spirit and flesh is together, is one. And other people believe that when a child is born, if you just leave that child and don't educate it, don't socialize it, that child will become naturally aggressive and selfish as the years go on. Do you see the contrast? So some people believe that the child will grow and has to learn to be social, has to learn order, has to learn laws, has to learn morals. Other people believe that the child has natural morals, and then morals will just come out as the child gets older and so on. Can you see the two sides? Yes? So, if you believe that the child has to be taught morals, has to be taught right and wrong, then obviously the child becomes aware of his or herself and is then told that you mustn't be selfish or you mustn't do this and you must battle against your natural inclinations. Otherwise you're not fit in society. So you have to fight against your natural inclinations and follow this code of practice or follow these laws of our culture so that you can fit in with the community. And so the child is taught that there's a war between what you want to do and what is expected of you. Yes? And then that war can be seen as the war between the spirit and the flesh. Now there's other people who have a different view and say, if you just, do not have any laws, everybody will just get on fine. Can you see? In other words, don't make any laws, don't destroy culture, destroy nations and so on, and just live yourself and live off the land, and then we'll all live happily ever after. Can you see the contrast in those two views? So how do you see it? Which one of those views do you all, give me some feedback on which of those views you share or you believe in? Well, that's the basics.
Can I bring up one book?
Okay.
There's a book called The Continuum Concept. The Continuum Concept.
Yes.
And that is very influential amongst alternative midwives. And it comes from someone who went to an indigenous tribe and observed the people and noticed that the children never left, or the babies never left someone's arms.
Oh, interesting.
And the babies didn't cry. And also there were some issues around childbirth wasn't necessarily a painful experience. It could be a positive experience, where in our culture we conceive birth as a painful, suffering experience. So I think that we do home education as a family, and I'm not trying to suggest that we're anywhere close to mimicking a tight-knit indigenous community connected to nature in its purest sense, but I get some intimation that if children are protected by a group of caring parents rather than educated, and that there isn't streaming according to age group, rather than being sent to an institution where they're given certain rules and regulations rather than nurturing and being listened to, then the outcome is different. It's significantly different. And I noticed, although myself and my partner were convinced kind of conceptually of the idea of home education, it wasn't until we went to a home education festival and saw the teenagers seem to be able to relate better to adults, seem to be able to relate better to younger children, seem to be able to relate less competitively among themselves, gave the confirmation of the idea that children, given more of a nurturing education rather than rules and regulations, became more well balanced.
Okay. Is there anybody else?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Keep going.
And, that's I believe in tandem with what the ancient, so to speak, people used to practice. They were practicing a matriarchal system, whereby it's based on the understanding of nature that the female gives birth and is the first form of government for the child, and therefore females are by their nature more in tune with governance, and therefore it's translated on the society at large. So females are the ones in charge of governance, while males are engineers, architects, and things like that. So and that would eliminate capitalism, competition. Like he said, the teenagers were less competitive. So yeah, in that way, I would agree.
I don't know. I mean, it is possible that females might. There have been rulers, very good rulers throughout history that were females, but a society with a hierarchy on top of which females reside, there haven't been any big historical examples of a country or an empire or whatever having success.
There were. They just don't report
like
it. Like ancient Egypt was actually a matriarchy. They just don't report it.
What
Whenever
makes you
you
say that?
whenever you see a pharaoh, there was there would be a queen by his side, and this queen was actually all the tribes were named after their queens. So they rotate different tribes that would be ruling, and these were based on matriarchal tribes. Okay. So there are some writers who have exposed this, the conspiracy to hide the fact that ancient Egypt was a matriarchy.
Why? Why do they hide
Well,
it?
because we're living in a patriarchal setting now. It's the reason why in Islam, if you look at the ritual that they do every year, the ritual of the Hajj, we have the ritual of the stoning of the devil, which is actually an obelisk which they stone, which is the male fecundatum principle, which is the phallus. So they're stoning the phallus, they're stoning patriarchy, while they're advised to go and caress the cube. And in the cube, there is in the corner of the cube, there is a black stone, which is shaped in the form of vagina.
I heard of
so
that.
what they're doing is they're saying matriarchy over patriarchy all the time. This is what ancient societies were doing. In Ireland, there are many female goddesses with their vagina open that they used to be put on pedestals, and then people go around it, circumambulate it.
Sheila Nagig.
Exactly. So many.
Yeah, but look. If you ignore that one ritual in Islam, which you might have a point there, because I did hear of it before, of the black stone being in the form of a vagina. I have heard of it before. If you ignore that one little detail of Islam, the whole structure of power is based around men and about the dominance of men over women. That's how the structure of power
that's
is
revisionist
based.
Islam. That was what was created less than 200 years ago.
You
If you
think
go back to the
original Islam was
original
like
Islam, it wasn't like that. You see, if you look at the Moors of Europe, they were certainly not practicing that. They were practicing the. You see, when you say, I think I need to explain. When you say Islam, when you say Muslim, what does all these? What does all this mean? You see.
Well, yeah, there were different Muslim countries with different cultures and different rules to them, let's say. But I don't know, the original Islam. Did the original Islam have a matriarchal?
Yes, absolutely. You see, the Arabic word Muslim comes from the original Aramaic, and in the original Aramaic, the L is interchangeable with the R, so it would be pronounced Mizraim, which is a name of Egypt. Misr, Mizraim is the name of Egypt. So whenever you were doing any science that had to do with the higher self, that would be referred to as Masonry. So Masonry is Muslim, it's Mizraim, Misr, it's the same thing. So basically Masonry is any of the ancient secrets and practices that have to do with astrology, that have to do with diet, that have to do with so many things have been ritualized and allegorized as the religion of Masonry. All religions have the same origin, and all of their origin is from ancient Kemet or Egypt or whatever you call it, Mizraim. It's the same source.
Okay. I wouldn't say the religions had an origin in Egypt, because the first civilization we have accounts of, the civilization with which history started, by that I mean the civilization that started writing. That is the definition of history. After the first civilization started writing, before that it's prehistory, was the Mesopotamians. They were the first civilization.
Sumerians, you mean, as well?
The Sumerians. The Sumerians, Mesopotamians, it's the same civilization. I guess the Sumerians is a better name.
No,
it's
but
it's
our
a more
writing,
correct name,
our
so
writing
you're right.
did not come from them. So when I say that religion started from Egypt, I mean because our writing came from them. The Greek writing comes from the Demotic script, while Arabic comes from the Meroitic script. So all of our writing, Latin, all these things come from there.
From Egypt.
So that's our point of reference.
From Egypt.
Yeah.
But how? Egyptians used hieroglyphs in their writing.
It's the hieroglyphs that changed to become the Meroitic script, the Demotic script. These later formed into the Greek, Latin, Arabic, all of these things. That's where they came from. So that has to be our point of reference.
Hieroglyphs have one symbol for each word. Now, alphabet.
No, they have cursive. They have cursive hieroglyphs. I can show you, but I don't want to remove my gloves. It's so
You
cold.
mean, look, I know that there are, the Egyptian numbers are interesting because the first three numbers are similar to the Roman ones. The Egyptians had 1 dot for 1, 2 dots for 2, 3 dots for 3. That is true. That's very similar to the Romans. So I guess that's what you mean by that. But I don't think it's very similar to an alphabetic language. An alphabetic language is very, very different from a hieroglyphic
Take
one.
the Bible, for instance. You can find the religion, the story of Jesus, the virgin birth, the nativity scene. You can find that on the Rosetta Stone. If you go and Google the works of
I know the Rosetta Stone.
Alvin Boyd
I
Kuhn,
heard of it.
go and read the book of Alvin Boyd Kuhn, Who is this King of Glory? You would see that.
Yeah. Right. So now we're talking about Sumeria, the Sumerian civilization and the Egyptian civilization. But I want to bring it back to the fundamental that must have been sorted out before we developed into different civilizations. Because the bottom line is, with all these codes, with all this writing, with all these instructions, what is the purpose of them? Obviously, the purpose, it comes back to the original question. Were these structures and these laws and these codes and these writings necessary to shape the growing child?
To pass knowledge.
Right. So,
That's the main point of
yes, but
writing.
this knowledge then becomes law, and it develops culture.
Yeah.
And the ways of behavior.
Yeah.
Right.
Humans
So,
notice.
okay. So therefore, the way you're speaking, the impression I'm getting is that these laws and these codes and these writings were necessary, going back to the beginning of the conversation, to suppress or shape or guide the flesh, because the baby can't read. The baby can't read. So somebody must have started developing all this information, whether it's the Egyptians or whether it's Sumerians, because they felt they had to deal with the fundamental problem of how to bring up a child,
you see,
and build a society.
The oldest Vedic testament is around home economics.
So say it again.
The oldest Vedic manuscript, like the Vedas, is around home economics.
There you go.
Yeah.
See? So that's why I'm trying to stay. Let's stay at the roots of culture. or the roots of civilization. That's the conversation. Because I'm talking about the spirit and the flesh. You know, that's a baby. What are you going to do with that baby? It's flesh. The baby doesn't know anything. So, what is the right way to develop a society, to develop a person, and to develop a society? So I don't want to get into debates whether it's the Egyptians or Sumerians. You know, they had the same basic problem that we're discussing now. How are you going to bring up the children?
Well, it will be tested and tried methods. What's the best way to bring up a child? And that's obviously what they were doing. That's what they did. And that's why they created these sacred systems for people to follow, to fight your lower self, your carnal desires, and to reach that Christ consciousness.
To fight the lower self.
Yep.
Right, so I can see what side...
That was the creation of the superego in face of the id. As we follow Sigmund Freud's ideology, the id was the kind of childish, the raw desire. The ego was the choice, was the creature that chooses. And the superego was the spirit of the society, the duty, the what you must do. You know what I mean? And the ego is in constant balance between the superego and the id. What he's saying is when the superego was truly shaped, when they created these things to kind of limit the id. But I would say that the superego exists even before that, but in a more rough and rudimentary way. Because even in tribes, in tribalisms, there's still sort of a hierarchy, I would say. And it's just that as humans became living in more complicated systems, the superego evolved with it.
Okay, so going back to what you were saying that you said there were tribes that the baby was never put down.
Yeah, and so they in that
They
sense
always held the baby.
they were held. So there was an abundance of aunts and family people. So it's not just the mother who's holding the baby. In fact, the baby is passed around everyone. And actually, the baby, there's less of a concept of nuclear family and more of awareness that the children belong to the whole community.
Okay, so in that society, do they have writing?
Writing?
Yes.
No, I don't think this was in South America, I believe, where she went, and I don't think there were. No, I don't think they were writing.
Did you hear? Can you see the contrast here? Can you see what's going on here?
Yeah.
So, I'm seeing two camps here. One end is where you have a child who's developed by the community. All the women share in the mothering of that child.
Is it only women, or is it only also?
It seems mostly that the children are more with the women.
Right. And in that society.
All right, guys. I think I need to run away.
Yes. Okay.
Freezing.
Okay.
See you.
Good.
See you.
All right. Good. Take care.
Nice one. Bless.
Good. So in such a society, they seem to be primitive in terms of writing systems and law systems. Is that correct? So, and in contrast, on the other extreme, is where you have the so-called, what you say, nuclear family, which the children are possessed by that particular family, and not the community.
And also birth in our culture is associated with pain, and these days a high percentage with cesarean section, whereas in these tribal cultures the birth process is not associated with pain in the same way.
Okay, so there we have the fundamental clash of civilizations, isn't it? We just highlighted the clearest clash of civilization. Because how are those people going to get on? How are those people who have a shared community bringing up the child versus the nuclear family?
Well, with regard to cesarean section, if babies aren't born through natural childbirth, then there's all sorts of hormones which aren't triggered, which means often with cesarean, the mothers find it very difficult to give breast milk. and it's the breast milk that provides you know, a lot of supportive mechanisms to prevent disease in later age.
Right. Okay. So, looking into the future, which direction should humanity go out of these two clashes of civilization we just highlighted? Which direction do you think the world should go?
I think it's simply impossible for humanity to go the same way as the people in the tribes. Because with the amount of creatures we have, with the amount of humans we have right now, we need to have different ways of organizing ourselves. Such a simplistic way of organization simply isn't enough. A good comparison would be the transition from the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire. Even though the Republic was usually fairer, with such a large amount of lands, they needed a different way of ruling themselves.
Okay.
And even though the empire is kind of, a dictatorship to a certain extent.
Yes.
That's what they needed to rule themselves, to rule such a large amount of people. And I think our world is, to a certain extent, the same way. There's always a sacrifice that needs to be done to achieve something. And the sacrifice we need to make for a greater society, for a developed world, is to sacrifice some things.
Would you agree with that?
Some of the care.
Well, I don't think that we need to sacrifice.
Not all of it, obviously. Not all of it.
Inventions, technology. With regard to agriculture, often I state that the plough, as a symbol of human advancement, is and always has been destructive to the soil. The worms do a very good job of aerating the soil. The plough was really only invented to create a surplus for one person. But in places where where you don't want necessarily to have a surplus because there's abundance anyway, you don't need the plough. You can imitate natural systems where you put mulch on the top, the worms drag down the fertility. In monoculture with the plough, you required fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, a huge amount of water. With these permaculture systems, you don't need water. Even last year in the very hot summer, these permaculture systems in the UK didn't require any irrigation. And you can import mulch, or if you have more forest lands, you can take mulch from the forest lands. You can create hugels from trees, which you put down on the ground, and the nutrients give slow release fertilizer from the trees themselves, rather than mining from North Africa and importing. So there's certain ways that we're doing things. Yeah, we don't need the plough. Like just down the National Trust are doing no dig. As a very conservative institution, they're starting to roll it out in their different properties. They've got a big sign, 300,000 people go to Sissinghurst every year, and a big sign says 6.6 tons of food off an acre and a half of ground, which if you were doing meat production, you get maybe 300 kilograms. Or if you were doing other arable, you wouldn't have the same abundance in diversity.
So you're saying that more food is produced by that form of farming, which does not need the plough. So you're saying tons of food is produced in contrast to a society that has ploughs and eats meat.
Yeah. So we can create abundance. But I'm not saying that we should abandon all technologies, but that we can return to that nurturing aspect that we were talking about, that we see in tribal communities, as well as keeping the tech. So we can maintain cities, and we can do sort of aquaponics. We can have warehouses full of food with artificial light,
silos.
But also we can plant back on the ground, and we can return communities to the countryside.
Okay, so this is very interesting. So tell me what you think, because I know you're very up on political systems and so on. So I'm going to try and make a suggestion that would be a balance between your two worlds. Yeah, because you all got very strong arguments but I'm just saying the clash of civilization now is represented by you two at this moment in this discussion. You're discussing getting back to the nature, getting back to the land, and a closer connection between the people, community, and the place where they actually live. And then you're discussing how that as the world is a much too big a place now, and it's a much too it needs sophisticated systems to manage all those people. So, would you agree that if an ideology that promotes identity, as in race, ethnicity, culture, in contrast to this monoculture of banking and production and the plough, cash crops, could we create a new type of political economy that seeks to preserve each group of people where they are, using the land where they are, in contrast to the bankers who are saying, we'll grow all the food here and use our plough, and then we'll ship the food and the drink and ever. We'll control the food and the drink because we'll ship it to wherever it needs to be. Can you see the contrast?
I think I understand what you mean.
Yes. So it's some kind of revolution in thinking and ideology, rather than focusing food production to set places for economic means and all about shipping and roads. In contrast to still keeping the shipping and the roads, but using the technology and science to enhance the lives of the people wherever they are, where they actually live. And I'm saying that why I'm a national racialist is that I believe the sophisticated systems that he's talking about, they can be used to preserve people where they live and where they belong, and still preserve their cultural and family values. And we use a sophisticated technology and shipping and road systems just to facilitate better communication and understanding between the different societies that may be spread throughout the world. So that's the ideology I would push, that I think would bridge those two worlds. Yeah. Does that make sense?
You make some good points, but you just make one false association.
Yes.
Which I think is associating what I'm saying with kind of, the banking ideology of pure sheer profit.
Yes.
And associating his ideology more with a traditional way of thinking. Is that what you said? Did I misunderstand it by any
No,
chance?
what I'm saying is that the bankers and the big business people, they would seek to destroy the world that you were describing, and the values and the ethnicities and the groups. But I'm not saying that you are necessarily in harmony with those banking people, those big traders. I'm saying, or what I think you're saying, is that the world is a lot bigger and a lot more sophisticated. So something is new or has to be created in order to bring about so that your people can live.
Well, I think this is one example, isn't it? The sophistication of communication means the decentralization of communication. So you've got the BBC just down the road.
Yes.
But here you've got various channels.
Yes.
Alternative media of communication. And that's more sophistication, isn't it? Rather than simplification in the monoculture concept where everything is the same. So you don't require sophistication.
Yes. So I'm not just saying that you represent the bankers The bankers to me are the enemy. The big traders are the enemy, and I believe that a new system has to be created that will allow for people like you to live, and I think would be acceptable to you, realizing that a more sophisticated system is required.
And we do need better response. Like I was seeing in the newspaper the other day, the environmental agency headline have severe concerns that if Brexit doesn't go ahead, then there's going to be a crisis in animal waste products, animal shit, basically. That the environmental agency have a certain amount of containers, a certain capacity, which they then siphon off to treatment plants that then is facilitated safe to largely go out into the sea. There's going to be real logistical problems and system failures, potentially, if we don't get to grips with the more sophisticated, diverse ways of treating, this, what is essentially could be viewed as a asset rather than what we term as waste.
Right.
That's not a very sophisticated view to look at the fertility of the world, which we now are flushing out into the oceans. Most of the fertility of the world, because most of the biomass of this planet is controlled by humans, as in the domestic animals far outweigh the wild animals, and most factory farms are sited by rivers. So this huge asset of fertility, which you could say represents the feminine principle, is devalued. It's not valued, but it could produce so much.
It's seen as waste rather than fertility.
Yeah.
Right.
And also it can provide heat. It can provide energy. The Victorians used to grow their mangoes and bananas from animal waste in greenhouses. But you can if you don't put the shit in the water, then you can do aerobic composting. You can get up to 80 degrees centigrade, and you can heat buildings, you can light buildings from it, you can trap the methane that comes from it, all these things.
So to boil it right down, this is the big question. What would be the name of the new ideology? What would be the name of the new ideology? Because then you could promote that in contrast.
Narcissism. What was it?
Narcissism.
What's it? National racialism. Yeah.
Listen, that I believe that is the name of the new philosophy. But what would you say? Because you would definitely not say socialism. Because I've listened to your speeches on socialism. You definitely would say it would not be called communism.
No, most definitely
right?
not.
It would not be called fascism. So, because it's funny when you give an idea a name, then you can function it. You can sell it, can't you? If you say, "Oh, we're socialism," then you can start selling socialism, and millions of people die because of that. But it's the name. Then somebody, "Oh no, it's communism. We're communists." And then people say, "Oh, what is communism? What is communist?" And then you're selling that idea, and then that idea, or people say, "Oh, we're a capitalist. We're all capitalists. We have to be." And then people say, "Oh, democracy." And then you just start selling that word, and look at the power of that word, of a word. So once you name a concept, and you name it right, then it has power. It's like you're putting the idea within a vessel, or it's like a bullet within a gun.
Look. Democracy, fascism, socialism. These words have power.
Yes.
Because we have experienced what they mean in the past. Because we know what they
Yes,
mean. There was
that's right.
a big experience of these words.
Yes.
So they are associated with something.
Yes.
Once we name some new ideology with a name, it won't mean anything for the people unless they experience it. But a name is important, of course. But
Yes.
I don't think the name should be the main thing to focus on. Now, what I think the big distinction here between our ideologies is the distinction between harmony and development. Now, the two don't always go together, because sheer development
destroys harmony. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about the island of the how do you call those creatures with the horns that Santa Claus rides in this
reindeer?
Reindeer, yeah. The island of the reindeer. I'm not sure if this was an actual observed fact, but I heard that in Siberia there was one time that there was an island in the middle of a lake, and during the winter the lake froze, right? So a few reindeer came inside the island. The island was really big, it was really nice, the lake was also pretty big. So then the lake dissipated. It was especially cold winter, so
Yes.
the ice was thick. So the reindeer started reproducing, and they reproduced and reproduced and reproduced to such an extent that they ate almost all of the food that they could eat on the island. They were starting to starve at that point.
Okay.
A few years after that, like after they started their quick reproduction, the lake froze again to such an extent that it could be walked upon. And a few wolves came inside the island. And the wolves established natural balance of the life of the reindeer, because the wolves would eat a bunch of reindeer, and the reindeer would not reproduce to such a rate that they would not have any more, they would not have enough reindeer to eat everything.
Right.
Now, what do I mean by this example? Harmony is very important, because if we develop too much, if we become too big without taking giving any attention to harmony, to our coexistence between the rest of the ecosystem and all that stuff, we will just die. It will not be a good way of following civilization. So I think it's definitely very important to keep in mind the ecosystem and all the things that we need to do to coexist with the ecosystem. Another example of this is one example I always give that Kyle, conveniently ignores. The example of Mao's China, when he was doing the Great Leap Forward. He did the 4 plagues policy, and they exterminated all the sparrows in China. So the locust population reproduced to such a rate that they started eating all the harvest, and the Chinese started starving, and the Chinese eventually had to buy sparrows from other countries to replenish.
Really? It's real?
You can look it up. It up. One of the stupidest things ever done by humans. They just killed all the sparrows because they thought they ate a lot of grain. And it's true, they ate some grain, but the locusts ate more.
Right, okay.
And they destabilized their ecosystem. So ecosystem is definitely something very important in the survival of mankind. We still don't have absolute power over Earth, so we are dependent to the ecosystem to a very big extent. But still, I don't think coming back to the tribalistic way of life is a good way to continue our society. I think a good way to keep on the society would be to follow a kind of meritocracy that also takes in,
meritocracy now.
Yes,
see, that's the word.
Definitely meritocracy.
So he said it's not democracy.
Yes. No, but look, meritocracy
right.
is
Tell us about meritocracy.
Meritocracy,
and how it
just
works.
as the word says, meritocracy. It's praise according to the merit of the person. If the person is good at something, praise the person. If the person is not good at something, don't praise the person. It's just, the basics, how it works. Some people are good at some things, other people are good at other things, and everyone should be praised for the things they are good at.
Right.
And they should try doing the things that are useful. That's the good kind of meritocracy. Because if everybody does gender studies courses and stuff like that, then kind of defeats the purpose of meritocracy. Because if you're good at something useless, it doesn't really matter too much to the greater society.
But if we go back to your illustration, the reindeer were eating on this
the
island.
wolves were eating the
no, the reindeer were eating up all the foliage, right?
Yeah,
and then the wolves come.
Yeah.
So would you be able to convince the reindeer that it was meritocratic to have some wolves come onto the island? What would you say to the reindeer?
It's now that I see, it's not the best comparison.
All right. I'm listening very carefully.
I was comparing to something different. I was comparing to natural balance.
Yes, but it's the same thing. That illustration, it goes right the way through what you're saying.
Not exactly, because look, meritocracy doesn't have a lot to do with natural balance. I just mentioned it because it's a very important way of dealing with talents of different people.
Hold it, you're saying meritocracy, the reindeer were eating on this island. And then the wolves come. So would you be able to convince the reindeer that it was meritocratic to have some wolves come onto the island? What would you say to the reindeer?
Meritocracy
has nothing to do with natural balance.
I take that back. That,
right.
No, it doesn't have nothing to do. It doesn't have nothing to do.
Okay,
But it doesn't have as much to do as to compare the example of the reindeer in the island with actual meritocracy. If let's look for another example in animals, the lions, for example. The meritocracy of the lions is basically segregated mostly to the males, because the males fight with each other for the pride. The pride is like the harem of females, of female lionesses. They hunt, they take care of the children, they do everything, and the lion just slacks. That's basically it in lion prides. If a male challenges
they say
another
that it's like
male,
that amongst humans sometimes as well.
Sometimes, yeah. If a male defeats another male who dominates pride, he will take over that pride, and the defeated male will either die or be exiled, leave the place. That's kind of meritocracy, but it's more of a survival of the fittest meaning. Now, humans don't function the same way, because humans don't function sheerly out of brute strength. If they functioned out of brute strength, then humans wouldn't go very far. The intellect of the humans is what really makes them go beyond animals. That's what really makes us create societies and to improve ourselves.
How about take the bramble, for example. The bramble's a pioneer plant, but in astrology, because the herbalists would take great store by astrology. So the bramble is associated with Mars, which is the male sign, but also it's in the house of Taurus, which is a feminine earth sign, and it's about nurturing. So how do you equate that with the bramble? Well, the bramble does have its external warrior aspect. So it's got the, it's got the spines, but actually it has a nurturing aspect because it's protecting the plants beneath it from being foraged by your reindeer, and that they allow them to grow up underneath in that protective environment. So that's an example where the male and feminine principles are
It's very similar to the Devil's Garden. Have you heard of have you guys ever heard of it? No. It's a plant that exists, I think it exists in the forest of Amazon, but it might exist in other parts of the earth. Basically, the Devil's Garden is a specific tree that allows a specific breed of ants to live inside of it. And the ants bite and kill every single plant around it. So the Devil's Garden is isolated. You may walk around the Amazon forest, the lush forest, everything and like all green, and then out of nowhere you walk into a place with only a few trees. You think humans did this? No. Nature did it to itself. Because it's not only humans. Nature itself has a self-destructive behavior very often. Like let's give another example: the marsupials. You know what are the marsupials? The marsupials were the first mammals. They basically it's the mammals that are born and then are kept in a purse. They're different from the placentary mammals, because the placentary are like humans or horses or dogs, because the placentary ones can reproduce faster and are way more competitive. And thus, basically, placentary animals just outbred the marsupials. Just simply as that, they outbred them all around Earth. That's why marsupials can only be found in some isolated island, like Madagascar, for example. There's a lot of marsupials in Madagascar. But, yeah.
So, understanding these principles that we observe in the animal kingdom
and the plant kingdom,
and the plant kingdom, how best would you apply this knowledge and these principles that you've discussed to the human? How would you do that? What would be the name of it?
You really want to give a name to this ideology?
Yes, because I believe as humans we function better. We function by names. Names. When you name something, you name a state, or you name a country, or you name a food. When you said nettles, we all understood what kind of plant it was, because we're all trained to a degree. Otherwise, you'd be talking, your language would mean nothing. So it's an order, isn't it? So that's the order that works for us humans. When you mention democracy, when you mention meritocracy, I understand the word merit. So I thought, I could understand a bit of what he's saying. See, so that's why I'm pushing the word, or there has to be a name for the ideology in order to function.
There's one aspect for me that what the patriarchy has brought us is globalization. So, as in, everyone talks about the world having got smaller.
Right.
And the concept that what we do on one side of the planet has an effect on the other side of the planet.
Yes, that's right.
Which is important.
That's right.
The other aspect for me that is important is the concept of community sovereignty. So we have like individual sovereignty enshrined in human rights. We've got nation state sovereignty, but we don't have community sovereignty. And I think that's important to combine those two factors, community sovereignty with the principle of global awareness and global cause and consequence and responsibility.
Yes, sovereignty. Sovereignty.
Seeing as people became so close together, like almost clumped together, there need to be new ways of them being able to deal with each other.
Yes. So therefore, I see it as a management issue. New kind of management. A new way of looking at the world and developing a new management system.
Yes.
And so the management system doesn't have to be the actual culture. It's like it's a tool that all these sovereign communities and sovereign nations and sovereign families, and so sovereignty, I'm saying, exists best when there's a good management system between each of the sovereigns.
And that's what economy means, because ecos means the home or the house, and nomi is like to do with management.
Okay.
You know, so ecology is like the logic of that.
Management of the house.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. But you can see the whole planet is our house. You know, in that
Right,
sense.
right. So which goes back to many discussions we've had earlier, where I see the principle that the fact that you have a bed or you have a home and and there's a wall between your bedroom and the rest of the house. See, it goes right the way back, and the rest of your flat.
Boundaries.
Yeah, that's right. So these are just management areas, but that doesn't mean that you can't invite your friends round for a party, dinner party or so on, but you need to have your space.
Yeah, I had to reject my 3-year-old the other day. I had to say, look, you have to go. Yeah, you have to go outside the house. Okay, like 2 minutes later. Okay, so you've got to stop. You're gonna not moan. Is the word I use.
Yes.
And then she'd come inside, but she knows.
Yes.
That, you know that she could be put outside of the boundary.
Yes, just like put outside the community, put outside the nation, put outside the family, put outside. Yeah. So I'm saying that the principles of a home are scalable. Now, just because you've got a home, homeness goes with sovereignty. That's what I'm saying. So the idea of being sovereign means there must be a sovereign space.
Yeah.
Now, just because there's a sovereign space, it doesn't mean that it's a prison.
No.
It means that you can travel and go wherever you're welcome, or wherever you're invited. You might sleep in the forest, but you still have your home.
Well, that's the distinction between ownership and territory, because ownership is a fixed space. Territory can expand or retract.
It's kind of similar. Ownership over territory is one of the basics of the definition of borders between countries and between people. Like my neighbor lives here, I live here. It doesn't really change.
I think there can be more fluidity when, in my mind, with regard to ownership and territory. Territory can be.
What kind of fluidity would you like to
have?
Well,
for example, if I'm getting older and I feel like I'm not ranging about so much, my territory might be diminished to quite a smaller area. You know?
Yes, and that fits in with what we were just saying. You know, when you're young, a young family, they might have lots of children and they need a big house.
Well, this
they
is
might
why
have 5 bedrooms, but as the children start to leave the home, they say, look, I don't need this big house.
Yeah, except people talk about downsizing and all this.
That's right.
And that's why I advocate.
It requires a lot of management. There's a lot
but look at the technology we've got.
That's why I advocate yurts. So, for example, we've got a yurt at the bottom of our garden, and it takes, we light a burner in there, and it's like 6-7 meters across. It takes just 15 minutes to heat up. In our kitchen, which is a brick-built domestic space, light the burner, it takes an age to heat up. If we have a growing family, instead of having to sell a house and buy a new house, we just get a yurt, or we can make a yurt, and suddenly we've got a pod for our teenager. She can be in that's right. You know, and so instead of having to sell your property, you can just expand more organically, and that's again that idea of territory as opposed to fixed asset.
Yes, that's right. Because you may be an individual, and then you only need one room, and you'd like to have your music, your hi-fi, whatever. And I love the single life. Yeah, and then you meet a girl, a nice girl, and you think, oh. You don't understand? You might have to expansion. That's right, and then it expands, and then you might have children and so on.
Yeah.
But then you can also contract.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. Yeah. So that's addressing the point you were making about the moving boundaries.
Yeah.
But the sovereignty is still there in terms of identity. So identity may be fixed.
Yeah. But the spatial requirement is
that's
different.
Right. The spatial, yes. Yeah. Does that make sense? You don't like it?
No.
Yeah, he's thinking, his brain's working over.
What I think is it can work as a community as well.
Yes.
And that I believe that we don't have to change too much, that you could have empowered. I was discussing with IC3 about power generation, and a few years ago I was walking up the River Wye, and I was involved in fracking awareness in the UK, and the Monmouthshire group were lobbying the central government for regional grids. So they weren't just going to stop at that, but they were going to lobby for that, rather than just having one national grid, so that geographical areas can become more responsible for the energy production. And then once you've got a regional grid, you could have a town grid. And once you get town grids, then small business can get involved rather than big business or just corporate business. And to the point that you'd have a street grid, or each house would be its energy producing mechanism as well as energy expending mechanism. And that's just one example of how you could decentralize power and empower local communities to become independent, essentially to go, more off-grid, but using high-tech, technology.
That's right. So this is where the technology would come in, because as you said, it would need an amazing amount of management. But management is nothing with computers, isn't it?
Yeah.
But look, guys, I think the way you want to go is not the best way, and it requires a whole lot of fucking management in the middle. It requires a whole lot of complications.
Green energy is doing quite well.
Yeah, green energy is good. I have nothing against it. But living in yurts, I just don't feel like it's the way to go in terms of civilization, guys. Like, we already built up all of this stuff, all of the buildings.
But they're knocking it down.
Well, you want to knock down all the buildings?
Because they've got...
Pavlov, hey, the battery's down, just letting you know.
Okay.
But the point is...
Just in case it just cuts out when you want
Okay.
They're knocking buildings down as fast as they're building up. Well, because
and they call it development.
They've got whole industries that have a strong lobby for knocking down buildings, and then they've got a whole industry.
They're building new buildings.
Because they've got a whole industry, you've got a strong lobby for building.
And that's
new
how
buildings.
war works.
Yeah.
War works. They say, look, we're going to bomb this place, destroy this place, flatten it, and then once all these people have been smashed up and the leaders have been smashed up, we're going to come in there and build it all up again.
Yeah.
So you're right.
It's highly inefficient. There's loads of fit-for-purpose buildings, honestly, being destroyed.
Come take over everything from now to Benjamin.
Come, man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
I think an ideal house system would be the fact that if there is access to free healthcare, it should be dependable and not just a throw up in the air of what's going to happen if I go in and ask for help. I think it needs to be something dependable if that's how it's being marketed around the world.
Okay, now they have wonderful healthcare in Scandinavia, but there they paid more than half their salary in tax. Do you think you would get British people to do that?
I don't think we would get British people to do that. No.
I don't think we should get them to do that.
You